All right, let's go. Drive time, Wednesday afternoon, about 2:14. It is sunny and mild. It's about 42 degrees. And the honorable rite of passage, the yearly rite of passage of the inversion has set in here in Salt Lake City, Utah. The air quality is not great, Bob, not great today. Our guy Chase, KUTV, encouraging people to stay inside, but you know, you got to get out of the house. You got to go to work, got to run errands. But happy Wednesday. Despite the horrible air quality outside, it's good to have you with us. Drive time here on ESPN 700. It's called The Drive with Spence Checketts. That is my name, Porter Larson, in the studio today, producing the show, booking the show, and we've got a lot to do on this busy Wednesday afternoon to get you halfway through your work week and one day closer to the weekend. It was kind of a light night in local sports last night, but the Utah Mammoth with a massive win, 6-1. And right now, the Mammoth are in the midst of their longest home game stretch of the year. They've got to capitalize on this. No team has played more road games, at least as of the start of this week, than the Utah Mammoth. So we did have a little hockey in our market last night. And tonight, it is time for both college and pro hoops, as it is a really, really busy night in the NBA. Excuse me. And in college basketball, the Utah Jazz continue their 5-game road trip in Chicago tonight, taking on the Chicago Bulls. Lauri Markkanen is questionable for that game. We're going to talk some NBA on the show today as we have kind of inched our way closer and closer to the end of both college and pro football. Of course, we still have a lot of NFL playoffs that we'll get to on the show today and one more college football game. And, of course, the transfer portal continues to churn, and the coaching carousel in the NFL continues to churn. 9 openings right now in pro football. So we'll continue to kind of bring all the storylines to you, both in the world of college football and the world of pro football. Devin Dampier announced his intent to return to Utah yesterday. We talked about that on the show. Eric Weddle will be inducted to the College Football Hall of Fame. Our guy, E-Dub, very well-deserved, and I think I could probably safely speak for most people that I think at some point he should be in Canton as well as a member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But really excited for E-Dub. He's the second Ute to get this honor, Alex Smith being the other. So a lot to do, a lot of college football to get to. But again, a lot of hoops tonight with the Jazz in Chicago. The Utah men with a tough one on the road at 7 o'clock. They're taking on Texas Tech. That game can be seen on Peacock, by the way. Of course, you can hear it on our radio station. Good chat yesterday with Gavin Peterson, the head coach of the Utah women's basketball team. They take on Baylor tonight. Baylor's a really good team. They're a top 20 team. And the Utes win tonight. I would imagine they'll be a top 25 team next week. And all Utah State does is win in basketball. They continue to play at a very high level. They're going to take on Nevada up in the Spectrum in Logan. And Brigham Young welcomes in TCU tonight down in Provo at the Marriott Center. That game is on ESPN2. So a lot to get to on the program today. It's good to have you with us. Good guest list today. We're going to start things off with one of our favorites, Automatic Andy, one of the best kickers in the history of Utah football. Has become a good friend of the program. Andy Phillips will join us as our first guest right out of the gates. Our college football insider, expert, savant, Chris Kamrani from The Athletic today. And then a couple of friends from the NBA Daily Assist. Couple of friends from the NBA Daily Assist. Our buddy Zach Harper will join us today. Zach is a busy, busy boy, a bunch of different podcasts, and he writes for The Athletic. And then Tim McMahon, who technically is the ESPN guy who covers the Jazz, but it's been about 4 years since Tim has done much about the Jazz because, well, you know. So Andy Phillips, Chris Kamrani, Zach Harper, Tim McMahon, me, Spence Checketts, all you, the great listeners, hello, how are you? Happy Wednesday. And that guy, Porter Larson, ready for a Wednesday show. All right, during Crosstalk, radio's a funny thing, man, because sometimes the best topics just manifest out of nowhere. And Sean and I, during the break, before we went on air, were discussing what the dumbest thing you've ever done or dumbest thing you've ever pretended to be into to impress a potential partner. So Sean admitted that he read Twilight, the Twilight books, because he was trying to date a girl that loved Twilight. And we came up with a bunch of different options. Does anything come to mind for you? The dumbest thing you've ever pretended to be into to impress a potential partner?
Huh.
You need to think about that one, don't you?
I've gone to many plays and whatnot.
That's a good one.
Not about it. Listen, it's an art form. Do your thing.
It is an art form, yes.
But after, watching so many games and stadiums and arenas, it's just, that's more my speed, if you will. I'll have to think on it entirely, but that's one that at least came to mind as like a ballet in December.
That's a good one.
When I should be doing my last second Christmas shopping.
I want to ask Andy this, Chris. I'm going to ask all of our guests the dumbest thing and prepare them when you get them on the phone, so I'm not catching them off guard. Oh, you mean you want me to listen to the Mel Robbins podcast? Yeah, let's do that. I love the let them theory. So we're going to have Andy today, Chris Camerani, Zach Harper, Tim McMahon. We got a busy Wednesday show to kind of get you ready for the weekend as you're halfway through that work week. Hopefully you're having a great week, and happy Wednesday to you. But before Andy stops by, courtesy of our good friends and your good friends too at Prize Picks, it's time now for your opening tip.
Welcome to The Drive with Spence Checketts on Utah's #1 sports talk. Now into the studios of ESPN 700 to set the scene for the show. The opening tip of The Drive is brought to you by Prize Picks. Use the code ESPN 700 with Prize Picks.
All right, new year, new you. Whether you're starting a new routine or making player picks for the first time, trying something new can be hard. But in life and on Prize Picks, it always feels good to be right. With high-pressure playoff matchups every weekend and elite hoop action almost every single night, the action never stops. And Prize Picks lets you take control. New feature alert. Prize Picks has early payouts now. If your player gets off to a hot start, you have the option to cash out on those winnings before the game even finishes. You can find your community on Prize Picks with a new social feeds feature. You can share Prize Picks with your friends, copy lineups from winners on a single click. You can copy lineups you like or use them as inspiration for your own picks. You can even follow Prize Picks partners like us, tail and fade our picks with just one click. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use that promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup, because on Prize Picks, it is good to be right. All right, no news is good news. Since you and I last spoke after signing off air yesterday at 6 o'clock, there really hasn't been a ton of portal news for the University of Utah as far as losing players or adding to. We'll continue to kind of, track this stuff. Smith Snowden, I believe, I feel safe saying the final player that I believe is going to join Witt in Ann Arbor will be Smith. When you look at the remaining players that Utah has in the portal, I don't mean this disrespectfully. I just don't know that any of them would be on Kyle's wish list, and don't know that any of them are Big Ten players. So the transfer portal in college football continues topically to be something that a lot of people are discussing because of how chaotic it's become. We only have one more college football game. And it's odd because we talked about, and everybody in this ecosystem these days has talked about the necessity to change the calendar. And the ratings came out for the college football playoff semifinals, and they're down year over year. And the reason, I think, is really simple. Ultimately, this time of year, most people are trained to have moved on from college football, and it's time now for the NFL playoffs. And you only have so many hours in the day. You only have so many, options when it comes to sitting down and watching a game that's 3 to 4 hours. And if you've moved on to watch NFL playoffs, chances are you just don't have the time or the bandwidth to sit down and watch all of these college football semifinal games. So I've often said the one thing that will motivate the power brokers and the decision makers in college athletics to really try to get this thing back on track is if they're hitting the purse, if they're hitting the pocketbooks, if they're hit when it comes to lack of interest. Now, it's not like the numbers were bad. We're still getting 8 to 10 million people watching these games, but that's down by about 4 million people from even just a year ago. And, the two semifinal games, it was Miami and Ole Miss. And while those are, pretty decent college football brands, there's no Georgia, there's no Michigan, there's no Alabama, right? Like some of the USC, Notre Dame, there's a reason why a lot of people at ESPN were pushing for Notre Dame to be included into the CFP, because that brand, like even Notre Dame opting out of the Pop-Tarts Bowl against Brigham Young, it was estimated that the network was going to lose between $15 and $20 million when they traded Notre Dame for Georgia Tech. I mean, that's just college football still continues to be in a large part about brands. Right. And so when you say Miami Ole Miss, if you're a college football fan of a certain age, namely my age, you remember Miami, Luther Campbell and Uncle Luke back in the 90s, winning championships and just really being not just a good college football team, but a really cool college football team to follow. but it's been a long time. I don't know that Miami moves the needle the way that some of the other brands do that, historically speaking, may have been in. Now, it is the third straight year without an SEC team. A lot of people taking victory laps there. And Kirk Cignetti in Indiana have orchestrated potentially the most impressive single-season turnaround in college football history. But is Indiana a football brand that moves the needle nationally? Maybe they'll become that because they're going to be good for a long time. Indiana is a basketball school. It always has been. It's the Hoosier State. It's a basketball state. Oregon, big brand, question mark? I think so, at least out in this part of the country. Does Oregon move the needle back east in a way that it does out in this region? If the metrics are any indicator, the answer is no. But I don't know how much of this, and we'll see what the number looks like next Monday with Miami and Indiana going at it. And it will be interesting just to kind of see if it is a brand thing or if it's simply a calendar thing. Because ultimately, next week, there will be no Monday Night Football. That's one thing that the NFL does do for college football. If you're going to play your college football championship on a Monday night, the NFL stays away from that. There are 4 NFL games this weekend, but 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday. But I'm more inclined to believe that this is a calendar issue as opposed to a brand issue. But now that we have the numbers in, that the ratings for the CFP semifinals were down, I just think it's another indicator that you have to scoot the calendar back a little bit, that once the new year hits, it's pretty apparent now that most people have moved on to the world of pro football. But one more college football game. Of course, the transfer portal continues to be of utmost interest when it comes to trying to figure out what Utah is going to look like next year, what BYU is going to look like next year. The transfer portal will close on Friday, and ultimately, we'll have a pretty good idea of what the roster looks like. I don't know that we're going to have a pretty good idea of how good or bad Utah football is going to be, because a lot of these players that are transferring in are coming from smaller schools, a lot of unknown players. But, we've talked about this ever since the transition went down. Kyle Whittingham earned your trust over a number of years. I think he did. And some people may have believed that trust is broken now. And now it's simply time to trust Morgan Scalley and his staff. As Morgan said during the Vegas Bowl media availability, if you don't think we have a plan, you don't know who we are. And I think Morgan acted very quickly to fill out his coaching staff and acted very quickly to try to plug some gaps in the transfer portal. Speaking of the transfer portal, okay, here are your latest numbers. And I find this really fascinating because I think it underscores a massive problem that a lot of these young men are going to run into. So a total of 10,576 players entered the transfer portal. Let me repeat that. Can you imagine being a college football coach right now and you have to wade through tape of potentially 10,576 players? There are still 6,846 players in the portal. There will be at least 1,500 to 1,800 players where there's no spot for them on a roster and no scholarship available. Like, I don't know what their path is going to be if they want to continue to play football outside of going down a level or going to junior college. Like, there are a lot of players that have probably overplayed their hand here, as the transfer portal still is jam-packed with players looking for a place to play, but across the landscape of college football, there are just not enough spots or scholarships with the number of players that are still out there. All right, Andy Phillips is going to join us today. Jimmer Fredette is going to have his jersey retired for Brigham Young. That's going to happen on Valentine's Day down in Provo when Colorado's in town. Eric Weddle is going to be a member of the College Football Hall of Fame, so some fun announcements throughout the course of the show today. We'll catch a break and do some more college football coming up on the other side with Andy Phillips right here on ESPN 700. I just want to say into this microphone that Chris Kamrani is a bad friend. Before he joins us coming up at 3, I'm out of. Well, I'll just say Zins, because that's what people. My flavor is Rogue Mango, as you know. I'm out.
Oh,
and I
no.
texted Chris, on your way, will you please stop and grab me a tin of this? And he said, I will not support your addictive habit.
I'm actually on board with Chris.
No, I will quit when I get off air. I've got 4 hours of this. I need a little zen here on the program. So CK will join us. A man sitting across from me, my guess is you have no vices, Andy Phillips, Automatic Andy. Are you a soda drinker? Like, is there one habit you would love to break?
Oh, man. So I went through a phase last year where every month I would remove a bad habit from my life. So
Okay.
I started with treats, and then I went to no sugar, no added sugar at all.
Okay.
And then I went to no caffeine, which of all of the things that I've gotten rid of, caffeine was by far the hardest.
What was your vehicle for caffeine? Were you drinking like Diet Cokes?
So I would have, at first it was these NOCO drinks. So when I was playing football, NOCO reached out and they were like, hey, we want to send you a bunch of these drinks.
Okay.
Which is similar to Red Bull, probably a little less like Bang. But so NOCO and then Zip Fizz.
Zip Fizz.
Yeah.
Okay.
Zip Fizz.
But not a lot of soda or anything like that.
No, I mean, sure, I've been addicted to Diet Coke in the past or Coke Zero. But,
Yeah.
No, I kicked that habit a few years ago.
Okay. Well, clean living, Andy. I appreciate that. Of course, Andy Phillips live in studio. Automatic Andy, as he's known around here. All right, the other fun little side topic, as Sean and I during Crosstalk just randomly brought up, the dumbest, silliest thing you've ever pretended to like or be into in the name of like impressing a potential partner. What do you got?
Well, it's no secret my wife was a cougarette. And
Indeed.
So, when I was dating her, I was still in my when we first got married, I was still in my ski team career. And so I went to many a BYU basketball and BYU football game in the royal blue.
Wearing the blue.
Just so I could see my wife in some cougarette tights.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's love, Andy, because you were a Ute through and through.
Well, yes and no. I didn't really have much of. I didn't grow up. I went to BYU games. I went to Utah games. In fact, I was at the TCU game when that all happened.
Yeah.
We won't go into that. And but I wasn't a huge football, college football in that.
Okay.
So
yeah.
But I would say the thing for me was like kick against the mainstream BYU Mormon and let's go cheer for the Utes.
Yeah.
Was kind of how I grew up. And so definitely had a moment there where I was down at all the Cougar games and enjoyed those, and they were fun. But as soon as I got into my more rebellious years, I put the red on.
There you go. Yeah, my grandpa was a member of the Cougar Club. So as like a 3-year-old, I was going to BYU football games, have great memories. And I'm old enough to remember like Robbie Bosco and like Steve Young. And obviously I ended up going to the U as well. It's okay to actually have a little bit of love for both programs. I think some people have an issue with that, but it's not a binary thing. It's okay to support both in your own way. Is that fair?
Oh, that is fair. And you and I we're more connected than you think.
Oh, yeah?
I found out today. I got a story from my dad about your dad.
Oh dear.
And I won't put it on air, all of it. But my dad is while my dad was at Harvard Law, he was good friends with Matt Durant.
Oh sure. Yeah.
And there was some. There was a singles ward that had a great church ball team.
Oh,
and
no.
There was a married ward that had a great church ball team.
Yeah.
And when those two met, and your dad being at the married ward,
Yes.
there was a lot of, I don't know what the right word is, but pent up,
Yes. Yeah.
pent up aggression, as there usually is with a church ball game, regardless of what ward you're in. And so, anyways, that's how my dad. I don't know if that's how that's how he met your dad, but he's good friends with Matt Durant. Practiced law with him here locally, and anyways, had some fun stories.
Yeah, we love Matt, and I can tell you personal stories about my dad on the sports court in the backyard, elbowing his sons, let alone church ball on Saturday mornings. I remember when, I don't know, it felt like for a while some production company was making a lot of like Mormon LDS cultural movies, like Singles Ward or whatever. I remember when they came out with like the Ward Ball. I never watched it, but you could really make like a phenomenal documentary on ward ball. I don't know how much is it still really a thing? Do people, because back in the day when I was growing up, they actually had like leagues. We would play like other stakes. Do they still do that?
I think it kind of depends on where you are regionally.
Okay.
I do think it happens, but like Utah is, you sometimes get these former college players. My dad played with Danny Ainge in a couple of these pickup games.
Yeah.
And so it's like you're getting some ballers.
Yeah, no, everyone here knows how to play basketball. In fact, we had Britton Covey in studio a couple years back, and Britton was a really good high school basketball player. But, there's a gym in every church, and even if you don't play like high school ball or AAU ball or college ball, you just know how to play. I just feel like everybody here like has some sort of basketball skill. There was this funny video circulating on, I think it was Instagram. I'm not on TikTok, where it was somebody in like a random state showed this video of like a 12-year-old blonde-haired LDS kid just knocking down threes. And he's like, I swear every school has a Mormon 12-year-old that can shoot three-point shots like at a high level, because we all grew up learning to play. You know what I mean?
Well, and those of you that, or those of us that grew up and, my younger cousins watching Jimmer, it's like, that was it.
Yeah, for sure.
From the outside.
Yeah. No, my dad has a competitive side that as he's aged a little bit, I think it's gone down, mostly because he can't play anymore because he's 70 now. But yes, we have a lot of stories of games ending in competitive fashion in the backyard after an elbow or two was thrown. So I'm anxious to hear what you have off air. All right, Andy, it has been, I don't know, it's been a news cycle when it comes to college football that has a lot of really interesting storylines to unpack from a media angle. And ultimately, I think it's also caused a lot of people to show who they are, I guess is how I'll put that. Let's start with the Witt stuff, and I don't want to hammer it over the head, but let's be clear. It's very clear at this point that Kyle wasn't done coaching. It's very clear that he wanted to keep coaching here in Salt Lake. And it's very clear that there were several people, or maybe just one, or a handful that wanted Kyle to move on. It was time for Kyle to move on. And I think a lot of people are excited that it's Morgan's time. So Kyle's in Ann Arbor now. And I don't know if you've checked his LinkedIn page. His job title is the head coach of Michigan football. And as the head coach of Michigan football, your job is to make sure Michigan is good, not that Utah is kept intact. Now, on the other side of it, losing Smith, losing John Henry Daly, Celestine Moa, the number one recruit in Utah. I understand the fan frustration. Where the fans are losing me right now is when it's over the line and it's personal attacks at Kyle and, believing that as a result of taking a few players and coaches, his legacy is now no longer intact, or over the line to like go at his daughter who took to social media to express some things. And I know you've kind of found yourself in the mix here. What's your take on where we find ourselves?
Yeah, I'm there with you. I tweeted it out and I just said, if you feel that way about Coach, that you feel like you need to attack him personally, attack his daughter personally. I don't like you. I'm not going to tell somebody how to fan, but like that's like, how do you call yourself a Ute? And you look at the legacy that he's left and where he's left the program, and regardless of what coaches and what players have decided to follow him over to Michigan, like the program is where it is because of his impact.
Right.
And so trying to deny that and excuse that out the room, I think, is just totally careless. And what I appreciate about Coach is if you listen to any of the interviews that he's done over the last 2 months or month or whenever he took the job, he's been very gracious, and sure, there's maybe more to the story than what he's putting out and what Mark Harlan's putting out in the public. But with all of that being said, like that is not something that is being brought to light, and he's not going to use that as leverage to sway a fan base or to show, rightfully or not, if he was pushed out, he's not using that to be like, hey, here's my excuse. And that's what I appreciate most about Coach. I think it's class, and I think he's leading that way, and he's embracing, this challenge at Michigan. And that's what he taught us as players was like, hey, be uncomfortable, like get comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's what he's living. It's 65 years old. That's pretty cool that he has that opportunity. And so, like you said, I don't want to, draw too much attention to those loudmouths that are maybe the 1 or the 5% of the fan base, but where it gets me is like, hey, we're upset about John Henry Daly going to Michigan, but where was he 2 years ago, right? I mean, that is the state of college football right now, and I have 100% faith that Morgan's going to bring in a dog who is just as productive as he was, and so I get a little upset going, okay, great, you're making all this, fans, we're making all this fuss about losing players, losing coaches. Well, have a little bit of faith in Morgan, because like maybe, just maybe, Coach Witt hit his ceiling here at Utah, and now his ceiling at Michigan is much greater than it was at Utah. And let's let Morgan go and hit his ceiling, which I think will exceed what Coach Witt was able to do with this program over the last 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah, no, well said. In fact, I actually had and I'll tell you off air who it was. I had a booster who was, and a very powerful one, who writes checks that are, basically the lifeblood of the program. He was listening to the show, and we were kind of discussing this dynamic, and he sent me a text after the program. He said, look, a lot of us felt like, I got to be careful, because it wasn't like Kyle was disconnected, but a lot of us felt like Kyle needed to recharge his batteries a bit. And he thinks this Michigan challenge is going to recharge Kyle's batteries. And he said a lot of us are just ready for something new, something fresh. And look across the landscape of college and pro football. Nobody does this for 21 years. I mean, it's like 2% of the profession. Tomlin steps down after 19. Harbaugh steps down after 18. And then Witt steps down after 21. Like Lou Holtz himself said, you lose a portion of the fan base every single year, no matter how good you are. And even the greatest coaches that have won national championships have found themselves pushed out. And I do think the term pushed out is probably a little bit too strong. But I just feel like there is and should be space to say thank you for your 21 years. We're pulling for you. Go show that your proof of concept works on the highest level, and we're ready for something else. And that's okay. I think you can hold all of those thoughts in your head. I would hope so, at least.
Yeah, 100%. I think change is the catalyst for success, and that's happening with this turnover from coach from Coach Witt to Coach Scally. And if I'm thinking personally in my life, like I made a big career transition when I decided to step away from ski racing and put all of that energy into football.
Yeah.
And not that it's necessarily the same situation as what Coach is experiencing between Utah and Michigan, but it's like you have new life when you have a new setting and a new environment. And I'm so stoked for him to have that at Michigan, but I'm equally as stoked for Utah. I mean, listen to Coach Scout. Like, if you want to be pumped up and you want to know the health of Utah football, go listen to Coach Scally's press conference.
It was awesome.
It was unbelievable. And you will see that there's a man who he is unequivocally dedicated to the success of the players in the program, maybe even more than Coach Witt. And I say that because I think he has a skill set and a gift to be able to relate to the players on a deeper level than Coach Witt did.
Yeah.
And that's motivating. That's motivating to the right kind of player. And so if we can get a team full of those kind of players, which we have, that's part of the reason I think Devin stayed and made that announcement yesterday, is because it's like, hey, I believe in this guy. I believe in who he brought in. I believe in who he's trying to develop me as a man, and I'm all in. I'm going for it. I think that's a huge factor to that. And so I'm really excited to see what a team full of guys who are fully aligned and fully believe in Coach Scally, what that team can do. It's going to be scary.
Yeah, and, I wanted to dig into the presser and then some of because I think you point out a really key line of delineation where there certainly is a lot about Morgan as far as what he believes concerning football that he learned from Kyle. But personality-wise, these are not the same people. Like, anytime I would run into Kyle, very, very nice, shake my hand, say hello, but ready to move on to the next task pretty quickly, right? Like, that's who he is. Morgan will talk to you for 45 minutes. He'll sit down, he'll ask you about your family, he'll ask you about your life, and I'm not saying one is right and one is wrong. I'm just saying they're different, and I wondered what your perspective is as far as relating to young people and Morgan's approach to that juxtaposed to the way Kyle handled it. How do you think that's going to turn out?
I think it'll turn out. I think we've already seen how it's turned out. Just in that's the other voice I hear from the fan base, at least on Twitter, and what I've seen is like, wow, this is a breath of fresh air.
Mm-hmm.
We have a coach with what seems to be a more genuine genuine reaction, who's more open, who's more there's more energy there. And of course, it's a difference in personalities, like you mentioned. Coach Witt's much more reserved. And on the other side of that, I know there are players and fans that might think that Coach Scally is kind of over the top and disingenuous by the way that he is talking to you for 45 minutes and then has to just switch and start talking to somebody else. And he's just so invested in the present. And I think that's a huge attribute of his, is it's like, what's the present, and he's in it. And of course that doesn't mean he's not thinking about the future, but he is like, he's there. And if you have his attention, like, you have his attention.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to fare well.
The other interesting thing, and I don't want to read too much into it because I'm not saying it's calculated, but, Witt played at BYU. Kalani coached at both places. A-Rod both places. Marky Atuaya both places. Sione Pua was an awesome player here. He's coaching down there. Morgan's a Ute, and he's pointed that out over, like, my logo doesn't change. My logo will never change. He is one of the few, like, top-tier coaches. Jay Hill's another one. And we could keep Gary Anderson. I could keep going. That has ties and tentacles in both places. Morgan very much does not. And he's made that clear over and over and over that he wants people to know he is a Ute, and that is not changing at all.
Yeah, that's what his press conference is all about.
Yeah.
And I think knowing from the grassroots up, he was, I couldn't even believe it when I heard that he was attending Utah football games for free with a little league, league jersey on.
Yeah.
Man, long gone are those days. But, he's a Ute through and through. Not that Coach Witt isn't, but again, like, yes, there's legacy there, and that's, like, there's a lot to say for that.
Yeah,
big time.
Yeah,
I agree.
Did you have any? Morgan was the DC when you were there, right?
Yeah, and he was the D coordinator, and then he was safeties when I first got there.
Okay.
D coordinator when Kalani left. And then at that same time he took over kickoff.
Okay.
So the way that Coach Witt did special teams was he would assign, like, Sharif Shah was over return, punt and kick return.
Mm-hmm.
Coach Scally was over kickoff, and then Coach Witt would take punt.
Okay.
So I worked a lot with Coach Scally and Coach Shaw, for that matter, when it came to special teams, and I don't think a lot of people know that.
I didn't know that. Can you shed a little light on just what it's like to be coached by him, like the energy, communication style, what have you?
It's great. I mean, it's a little intimidating. You screw up and you're going to hear it. And he just demands a very high level of performance and holds you accountable and doesn't like excuses. And it's a great foundation for success. And I think of kickoffs, like, if I look back at some of the most impactful kickoffs for me, it was like we had schemed a surprise onside against UCLA.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And it was is it Brett Hundley?
Brett Hundley, yeah.
Yeah, who was there, and they were 8th or 5th, and so we were going down to their house, and we had schemed this surprise onside because their front line liked to leave a little bit early, and so we had run the kickoff, the first one. They had left a little bit early, but then the second kickoff, they were lined up, like, right on the line. And I look over to Coach Shaw, and I look over to Coach Scally, and they give me the signal, like, we're going for this. And I'm like, I'm looking at the two frontline guys who are these big dudes, and they're like, we're going for it. So I go, kick it, recover it, and like, the stoke was high, and it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then, a couple games later, I think it was the next game, I kick one out of bounds, and there's Coach Scally right in my face, like, hey, that, like, unacceptable.
Yeah.
And so he's not going to hide the way he's feeling about you and the way that the expectations of you, which I really appreciate from him. And that's not just on the football field, that's in the weight room, that's film, that's just he is who he is all the time.
I wondered, because you referenced Coach Shaw, and I don't know if this is true, but there are some people that believe that Kyle wanted Sharif to go to Ann Arbor, and Sharif said no, which would make him the only coach that said no, as for my understanding. And I want to be clear, I don't know if that's the case. But during Morgan's presser, on a couple of different occasions, he was emotional. And on one of those occasions, it was pointing to Sharif. And he referred to him as his best friend, and told this anecdote that after one of the 5 and 7 seasons, Kalani takes off to Oregon State, and Morgan and Sharif find themselves sitting in the film room by themselves, and they didn't know if they were going to have a job. And Morgan said, I didn't know what else to do, so we just turned on the tape and we got to work. Do you have any insight on the relationship between those two and just kind of how connected they seem to be?
Yeah, I do. Best friends, no doubt, and confidant, and just the as close as you can be. And my dad and I have played in a couple scramble tournaments. We used to do this annual scramble tournament up at Red Ledges with Coach Scally and
Love
Coach
it.
Shaw.
Mm-hmm.
And Coach Scally and Coach Shaw's handicaps were so bad one year that we won the net. I don't know what it was, 10 strokes or something, and we got $300 to the pro shop. In fact, my dad will take golf balls to them, almost monthly or quarterly, because he knows that Coach Scally can't drive to save his life, and so he's going to lose a bunch of balls. Anyways, they have a very close relationship, and it's been they've both been through a lot in their lives personally, and they've had each other to lean on through those experiences. But what I think has been the coolest is just the development of both of them as coaches. I can think of nothing better than to have, through my coaching tenure, a best friend who I can be completely transparent, completely honest with, can say whatever I need to say. Like it just is what it is. And to a point where, and I hate to bring this up, but that's where Coach Scally got himself in trouble a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Was there's such a closeness and a comfort level and a connection between those two that they could speak to each other, however they spoke to each other. And when that got publicized and went out to the public, obviously some inappropriate, or at least and at the time like highly, because there was just this crazy cultural cancel culture going on. But lesson learned. However, with that being said, that gives you a little bit of insight into how close they are. It's like recruiting, coaching, whatever it is, like they have bounced ideas off each other, and they have to be that closely connected because your safeties, your DBs, like they're interchanged.
Yeah.
Right? You have a guy like Eric Rowe who starts as a safety, goes to a corner. Chase Hansen. Like there's a lot of examples of guys who have bounced around from linebacker to safety to corner, and those two have had to just be on the same page. So that's a long way of saying, like, yes, they are super close, and seeing Coach Shaw get the associate head coach position was, I think, just a huge honor, because if Morgan wasn't there, I'd like to see Coach Shaw in that position as a head coach of this program.
Oh, you think Sharif has that in him? That's cool.
No,
that's really cool.
Without a doubt.
Love that.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, he was a sideline reporter for broadcast here on the station on ESPN 700. And he also, for our listeners that may not know, he has a law degree and he was practicing law. And he had this spot where he called himself everyone's favorite attorney. It always kind of runs in my head because we played it so much. Look, the situation where Morgan had the title stripped from him is fair game to bring up because it happened and it's public. And if you don't think it's going to be brought up to be used against him in recruiting circles, then you're just naive and ignorant. I mean, I think that's one of the things that people were a little bit nervous about. This is a cold-blooded war. And if I'm the head coach of, we'll just say, UCLA, and I'm going against Utah for a safety, and this young man is African-American, I'm going to bring this up. Unfortunately, Andy, that's just part of the game.
Sure. Yeah.
And hopefully everyone's moved on, but it's out there. It's public. It just is.
Sure, and that's fair game, and Morgan's addressed it, and I think it's and what I think where I get so caught up in it is, the offended wasn't even the individual that received, this mistaken text message.
Right, yeah.
And that's been far forgiven and players will say, like, he does not have that bone in his body.
Yeah.
And so you have to look at things with context, and but like you said, like, take it out of context and you can be dangerous.
Yeah, now it's the world we live in, and I agree with you. Being offended is a choice, and also don't say that. I mean, you can say both things, 100%. Right? Like, ultimately, who's the best golfer on staff? I mean, Witt's gone now, but of all the Utah coaches, we'll include Kyle. Who's the stick?
You can't throw Coach in there. He's definitely not the stick.
Oh, Kyle's not the stick.
No,
okay.
I mean, he's not bad, but he's not he's not great.
Okay.
So Sharif is probably the stick.
Sharif is?
He plays to like 4.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Adam Fry, who's up there.
Okay.
Adam's a great player as well. So Tom and I would play a bunch with them when we were there. I'm trying to think of who the best player was. Jordan Wynn is probably the best golfer. That I played with. Yeah, but Sharif is. I mean, he's got this. He can hit it a million miles. He's got this beautiful natural draw.
Nice.
And he just he doesn't get phased.
Okay.
And that's what's so you can talk as much crap as you want to him, and it doesn't phase him.
Okay.
You can get. I think you can get into Morgan's head a little bit.
Okay.
Just a little bit on the golf course.
I played with Tommy a couple of years ago over at Bonnie. We had a fun round. I beat him, and he was mad. I could tell that he was upset. I think I had like an 81 that day. I think he had like an 80. But Tom has a nice little swing.
Tom's a great guy. And to Tom's credit, when he came to Utah, he was like 110. It was awful, like 30 handicap.
Yeah.
And I think his junior year, he finally beat me.
Oh, okay.
And that was like a big moment.
What's do you have an index? What's your handicap? Where are you at these days?
I'm like an 8.
You like an 8? Okay.
I probably got down to like a 4 before I had my first kid.
Okay.
And then I think like sophomore, junior year, I probably played to like a 5. But
nice.
I'm not quite there.
Well, that's good though. I mean, if you're shooting at an 8, you're a stick. I've become obsessed with it, man. All right. Before I set you loose, we talked about this, I think, when you stopped by maybe a month ago or so. But let's move into the space because we don't know exactly what the roster is going to look like, but we kind of have an idea at this point. And look, a lot of these, I'm not going to be the Sports Talk radio host. It was like I smashed Hutchinson Community College tape last year, so I know who Earl Parker is. I don't know the majority of these players that are now on board. But as I've talked about, you learn to trust Kyle. Now you learn to trust Morgan. Devin's back, Bird's back, Wayshawn's back. They add a couple of what appears to be pretty dynamic pieces on the outside with the Brandon Pagan kid. I don't want to hold you to a number of wins, but when we're sitting here next January, looking back on Morgan's first year, what are your hopes as far as what it looks like?
10. I think 10 is
10.
Yeah.
Oof.
And I know that's a big number, but I don't see a lot of drop off in offensive production. I mean, I don't with Jordan Gross coming in and the O-line transfers that we've gotten, I don't see a huge drop off in our offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
We have Wayshawn back. We have our quarterbacks back. We're adding some speed on the outside. We've got a proven dynamic offensive coordinator who is going to step into the shoes of Jason Beck. I mean, look, if we look back at last year and go, okay, Jason Beck was great in New Mexico. He's bringing his quarterback, but what's this offense going to look like?
Yeah.
We would have never guessed that it looked like what it did this past year.
For sure, yeah.
I feel that same way about next year. And so I know the defense will be ready. I know that there'll be some dogs. We got a kicker, by the way. I don't know if you saw that, but we randomly got a transfer kicker.
Do you know anything about him?
I know that he was at Utah State.
Okay.
Went to UTEP. Pretty accurate dude. I think he missed maybe 1 or 2 each season. Didn't kick a lot of field goals. 8 or 9 each season.
Okay.
Not a super big leg, which is opposite of what we had with
you
with Dylan Curtis. And,
yeah.
And I'm not saying he's coming in to replace Dylan, but I really like competition, and I think that will be what makes it. You look at Matt Gay, and when Matt was competing for the job right after me with Chaden Johnston, who is a highly touted kicker out of Bingham, that competition is what I think's really pushed Matt into performing the way that he did.
Yeah.
And so I'm all about it.
Yeah, I mean, look.
Not that we want to talk about kicking.
No. Look, when you and Tom were there, and even Louis, the stretch of great special teams coincided with some of Utah's best years, and it's a good way to expedite maybe an inefficient offensive game. It's a huge part of the game, Andy. It just is. And if you have that dialed in, I love the Rams, but their special teams are a mess. Most championship-winning teams are high-level all 3 phases.
Yeah. Yeah, you need it.
All right, man. Great to see you.
Likewise.
Let's get you back soon, okay?
Okay.
Let me know if you need any roan, will you?
Yeah, will do.
Whatever you want, man.
Spence. Thanks, man.
All right, Andy stops by. Andy Phillips, Automatic Andy, courtesy of our friends at Wasatch Wagyu, a new sponsor on the show. Start 2026 off right with a juicy prime cut of Wasatch Wagyu beef right out of Heber, Utah. All the cows are bred locally, and they produce some of the best Wagyu beef around. Premium legit Wagyu beef New York steaks, 100% Wagyu burger beefs, roast tomahawk steaks, fillets, and now premium Wasatch Wagyu beef jerky in a bunch of different flavors. I want to give a shout out to Greg and Stacy. They're the owners, and the first month on the show, they were giving you 10% off. Well, they've upped the ante. You get 25% off for a limited time if you go to wasatchwagyu.com and check out their menu. Just type in ESPN 25 at checkout and get 25% off your entire order. Enhance your new year with Wasatch Wagyu at wasatchwagyu.com. 1 hour down, 3 hours to go. Chris Kamrani live in studio coming up next on ESPN 700. Or if I get grumpy in about 45 minutes, we're gonna blame Chris. It's not my fault. If I get grumpy in about 40 to 45 minutes and I start having some spinning headache symptoms, it's Chris's fault.
I got some jerky chew. You want some of that?
Well, I put in a cough drop during the break to try to stem the tide, but Chris Kamrani is live in studio, and ultimately you are a good friend for not supporting my horrible habit.
I know.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
How are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm good. Let's jump right into it. Let's start with the good, as Devin Dampier.
Sure.
In a video that I just thought featured nothing but charismatic, handsome. Sex appeal is real in that video. Ultimately, he's back in the fold, CK.
Yeah.
What do you make of it?
A win for Utah, a win for Morgan Scalley. It can't be understated how unique this situation is that Utah's benefiting from. And I'm sure we'll get into the embarrassment, the embarrassing nature of how Utah fans have acted. But, it cannot be understated enough that you have a guy that just led you to a 10-win season and the guy behind him who is, by all accounts, one of his best friends, if not his best friend, who is willing to come back. And I don't know if Bird Ficklin goes to another P4 program and starts right away because I don't think he has enough tape. But he could have gone to any number of other P4 programs to be what he's going to be at Utah again for a second straight year.
Absolutely. No, I was not expecting both of them back, to be honest with you. And when Bird signed, part of me wondered if this is a signal that Devin is going. But to get both of them back certainly is a win. How much of it, if any at all, do you think had to do with, when Morgan announced that it was Kevin McGiven, the walking line was he runs the same offense as Jason. Is there anything there?
My guess would be yes. I think Morgan maybe was asked about this at his intro presser about just the similarities between Jason and Kevin's offense.
Yep.
And if you're Devin, this will absolutely be your last year of college football, so familiarity will help. And not to mention a lot of the weapons that he had a year ago will also be back. But, you're not going to have to learn all new terminology, a whole new different playbook. The styles are similar. And I know lots of people have cut a lot of tape on X, on social media.
Oh, yeah.
Telling us what's going to be what. But, I would assume that played a role in it. But at the same time, if you're Devin – you also, this is probably your best case scenario at the moment. I don't know what other program at the P4 level would be interested in a guy like him and a program or an offense that he could walk into and be better on day one than what he would have at Utah, if that makes sense.
No, it does, because I think, initially, and I actually said this on air before it was announced that Jason was following Kyle. And ultimately, I don't know that we'll ever fully know unless a guy like you uncovers the deal as far as when Kyle had an idea that Michigan was an option. And I'm just trying to piece things together and connect dots. I just wondered if Kyle just told Jason, hey, I might get Michigan, so hold tight, I'll let you know. And then was the message conveyed to Devin that would be an option. Now, Bryce Underwood is coming back, so that killed any sort of chance, I think, of that happening. But if we play the hypothetical, is Devin good enough to start at Michigan in the Big Ten?
I mean, what if we're defining good enough to lead them to a winning record? Sure. But I think the leap, the canyon, so to speak, between 7-5 at Michigan and 11-1 at Michigan are pretty big, especially considering just how dominant the Big Ten has been the last few years. Devin was really good when he was healthy last year, but he wasn't healthy all that often. And he wasn't healthy for the most important games of the year. And that's not his fault. That's a byproduct of the game. If Devin is able to operate the way he was in the Vegas Bowl, does the BYU game end differently? Possibly. Does Texas Tech not spiral in the fourth quarter? Maybe. But then again, it's hard to compare games and results at different points of the year because Utah was playing a team that they were clearly better than in Nebraska in the Vegas Bowl. And Devin had his best game as a Ute because he had 5 weeks off to heal all of his various injuries. I don't know if there was a deal for Devin to potentially follow Jason? My guess would be no. I mean, Bryce Underwood had a $10 million NIL deal with Michigan. Like, he was the most sought-after recruit in the country. All of the physical intangibles are there. It would have been crazy for Kyle and Jason to, in my opinion, to move off of a kid whose ceiling is very, very high, whose measurables are better than Devin's, and not to mention, like, they also have made a couple ads in the quarterback room in the portal to back up Bryce.
Correct.
So it's
yeah.
You also have that luxury as well, where it's like you can go fishing for a solid QB2, or in the case of the kid from LSU, a project QB3.
So this is such a year-by-year sport now, with roster construction a necessity in a way that it never has been, and having to re-recruit your own players. And then there are, let me get the number right, 10,576 players entered the portal. There are still 6,846 players in the portal. There's not enough roster spots or scholarships for that number. There's probably going to be about 1,500 to 1,800 players that have nowhere to go. They might just have to go back to junior college or something, because so many of them have overplayed their hand. So it's tough to read the tea leaves looking down the line. I think BYU feels like they have a succession plan in place with Bear Bachmeier, and then when Bear is gone, then Ryder Lyons will take over. Are you confident enough to say that with Devin and Bird, maybe Utah is the same, Devin for one more year? And
I mean, it's hard to say.
Yeah.
You don't know. Let's say if Devin deals with injuries again and Bird comes in and balls out, who's to say that, a bunch of folks back channel it and, offer things that aren't supposed to, quote unquote, aren't supposed to be offered at the time. We need to get rid of this whole theory of tampering, man. Like, that's not real. All these people have agents, and this is the world of free agency, even though we're not technically allowed to call it that, but this is what it is. Nobody tampers. Grow up. But I do think Utah has an ideal succession plan in place, but like you said, it's a year-to-year thing, and you don't know how 2026 is going to play out. But if you are a Utah fan, you want it to play out pretty similarly to 2025 in terms of have Bird get his, 20% of snaps throughout the season, but be at the ready if Devin can't go in a game or goes down with an injury, because the style of offense that they are going to employ is not going to change much with Bird. Devin's just a more developed passer and a bigger threat down the field.
right.
But we haven't seen that from Bird yet. But that's the whole point of having a backup like him.
Yeah, I think it was Scott Mitchell who said he believed Bird was actually a better thrower of the football, just like a pure thrower, than Devin was. But if that's the case, to your point, we just haven't seen it, and maybe we'll see more of it. And I don't know what Kevin's offense looks like as far as wanting both of them to be involved consistently, but it certainly worked a year ago. But look, I continue to bring this up, man. Like, they have to rebuild both lines. They have to rebuild the defensive line for the most part, and they have to rebuild the offensive line basically entirely. So we live in a day and age now. Once upon a time, you had to try to pretend like you were an expert with everything. And now
Once upon a time?
That's
changed.
I just rely on people that do, like, for instance, I'm not going to watch high school football. So I will listen to the people that actually cover recruiting, and that's their only job. Alema Harrington. So I just go to the websites where people rank these things that cover them in a way that I don't, where once upon a time you had to pretend like you know everything. Sure. So this is 247. Utah's rankings as far as the portal so far. These are the transfer rankings for this year. Utah is at 44. For context, BYU's at 47. The highest ranked Big 12 team is Oklahoma State because they have 49 commits.
I was going to say.
Texas Tech is at 9, even though they only have 18 commits because they have 3 5-star kids. But is it even possible to analyze Utah's class at this point? Utah currently, the up-to-date number, let me make sure, they have 11 players that have signed. Earl Parker, a community college kid.
Yep.
So the rankings say they're about mid-tier in the Big 12 and 44th overall. Do you have any thoughts on these new players and what they're going to look like next year?
So if if you're a Utah fan, do you want to be told the truth or do you want to be told what you want to hear?
You're on the drive Monday through Friday, 2 to 6 live. So we only want the truth. And that statement just indicated as much.
Let's break it down. They've added a bunch of players largely from the P4 level who don't have a ton of experience. Like the most prolific ads that they've had in terms of players who've had stats to back up their spot in the portal are the kid from North Texas who had 4.5 sacks last year, and then the cornerback from USF who was pretty good. I forget his name. But if you're talking about the safety from Oklahoma, didn't play a lot last year. The Tennessee defensive lineman didn't play a lot due to an injury. The offensive lineman from Ohio State, I think, is a return missionary, so I don't even know if he suited up last year. And then you take I guess I forgot about Pagan and the kid from Kyrie Scholes from San Jose State.
Yeah.
Those are two ads that are significant in terms of these guys were really good at their previous schools. But most of this class you're seeing is Utah banking on players who might have been undervalued at the P4 level, and they're now banking on them being able to develop them. Surprise, surprise, it's Utah football.
Right.
Nothing's changed.
Yeah.
But Utah is living in a different tax bracket right now, man, and that's just the reality.
Yeah.
They don't have the luxury of Texas Tech, and they're not able to get pretty high-profile offensive or defensive players right now. Maybe some of these guys will turn out to be really good players next year, but it's too hard to say. So to answer your question, I think it's impossible to judge this current transfer portal class outside of the Pagan kid, the Scholes kid, and then the North Texas kid, because like if you're going to be logical, you have to judge them on how many games they've played and what their statistics are.
Yeah.
And even then it's hard because you don't know how they're going to project in a different system. But to say that, Utah upgraded at safety because the Marcus Wimberly kid was at Oklahoma, I don't even know if he had more than 1 or 2 tackles last year.
He redshirted with an injury and didn't play.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So it's like you can be optimistic, but you have to be realistic at the same time, but that might be asking too much.
Yes. Ethan Day, the North Texas transfer, 53 tackles, 7 tackles for a loss, 4.5 sacks, forced fumble. James Chenault is the kid you're referencing, the USF, and he's a sophomore. So he's got 3 years to play, 32 tackles, 2 picks, 4 pass breakups. But look, I mean, Hutchinson Community College, San Jose State, Montana State, Akron, Wyoming. It's a calculated risk, and you simply just have to put your trust in the coaches, I suppose. It's what they did a year ago, pillaging the New Mexico staff.
Exactly.
Because that's how it works. Sometimes when a coach leaves, he takes players with him, and other coaches follow him as well. And it worked in that direction. But I don't know what other option they have. Like, they're not going to go pillage Alabama's left. Like, this is kind of the deal. And to your point, historically speaking, it's what Utah football has been built upon.
Well, that's what it's been built upon. And I think Morgan and his staff will have to have a proof of concept on their own to show players going forward that, yes, Utah will be a place that, one, I can come get paid, because we know that's always going to be 1A. And 1B will be, formation, style, scheme, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything wrong with their approach, but this is the reality they're facing right now. And it is what it is. And you should count your lucky stars. You have your Wayshawn Parker's coming back, Devin Dampier's coming back. I don't know if Porter knows. I haven't seen like where do some of the other guys that were already on the roster, like the Larry Simmons guy.
I think Larry's coming back.
You've loaded up in theory at the skill position level, but you lose Dallin Bentley, who I thought was really, really good, but unfortunately for him, just time ran out on his availability to play.
Yeah.
You lose J.J. Buchanan to the portal. People rioted, I heard. And
they sure did. Build the statue, then tear it down, is what I understand.
Sad.
Yeah. Jalen Monson has no relation to Gordon. He has not announced. Devin Green has not announced. Brendan Zerberg has not announced. Drew Clemens has not announced. And then today, Jason Stokes Jr. actually announced that he was coming back.
I think he was going back in the portal.
And he's in the portal today.
Got it.
I think everyone else has committed, and we'll get to this coming up on the other side because Celeste Moa I think we're still saying decommitted. I don't know, but he is going to live in Ann Arbor. J.J. Buchanan, as you referenced, leading people to riot. Jonalea Ea, as well as John Henry Daly. And now Smith Snowden announced yesterday. Those are the 5 players.
I think you called 5 players.
I did. No big deal. I was also featured on the video that Devin announced. Some Ute fans are crediting me for Devin coming back.
Well, you weren't built into the AI Spider-Man Wolf of Wall Street thing, so let's not go too far.
Okay, fair enough.
Morgan was, you weren't.
I know, fair enough. Well, he's the coach, and I just speak into a microphone. But we'll get to this coming up on the other side as we now have the official number and the players that will play in Ann Arbor for Kyle. We'll keep talking college football, though, and the Damon Williams Jr. situation. Dylan Raiola is back in the transfer portal because Dante Moore.
Did that get announced?
Yeah. Well, let me do the responsible thing and make sure.
Yeah, I would make sure because I hadn't seen that.
This person is a credentialed media member that covers Oregon. So we'll get to that. But Dante Moore saw that the Jets had the second pick, and he's like, nope, I'm going back to school. But more college football with CK coming up next on ESPN 700. Chris Camerani, live in studio, our college football expert, insider, savant. Any other adjectives we need to throw into your title here on the drive? None. From The Athletic. Any assignments you want to let us know? What do you have coming up?
A lot of random human interest stuff ahead of the national title game. They had me approach this story that I found really fascinating that is not specific to the national title game, but it just finally got done this week. I spent a very long time trying to understand why in college football the clap signal replaced hut, hut, hike.
Okay. Huh.
And it was a very fascinating rabbit hole to go down because once upon a time it was you did it as the opposing team because it was, hard for the offensive linemen to hear through the loud crowds and all that stuff. But now everybody does it. It is ubiquitous in college football, but it's not like that in the NFL. So made a bunch of calls and really cool, really interesting story. I think that's running tomorrow.
Okay.
I don't know if you saw this, but a bunch of Miami players were taking cafecito shots, Cuban espresso shots before the semifinal.
I did not see that. Okay.
So I'm spending my week talking to folks in Miami about the cultural significance of Cuban espresso ahead of the national title game played by Miami in Miami.
Is there an extra layer of a caffeine jolt with such things? No. Okay.
It's more the sugar. It is about a 50-50 espresso to sugar and milk, whereas most espresso is more bitter.
Yes, indeed.
But it's really been a fun. I mean, you know me, man. I get off on these weird tangential sports stories.
Yeah, it's great.
So anytime I have a reason to call the Miami Herald food critic to geek out about Cuban espresso, I'm down.
Love it.
So that's gonna be another story coming up ahead of the national title game.
And I'm an espresso fan. I dig it. You are not though, because I gave you an espresso setup, and you're like, I'm not going to use this.
Well, I don't trust myself to make espresso at home.
Oh,
basically.
okay.
I'm a drip guy at home.
Okay.
But when I'm out and about, I'm gonna bouge it up.
Okay.
And do a cappuccino. I'm going to go down that road.
I enjoy a good latte from time to time.
Yeah, you're a latte guy.
Yeah.
Cappuccino for me.
Yeah. I do. I like a cappuccino, but I enjoy a good latte. Anyway, all right. Before we get to Ute fans being mad that Witt is taking players and coaches, even though Utah pillaged New Mexico's roster a year ago for players and coaches, the ratings for the college football semifinal were down. We have them. Look, it's still fine. Like between 8 and 10 million people were watching, but it's down year over year. And it's one of two things, CK. It's the football watching audience has moved on to the NFL now because you only have so much time. I mean, unless you are
take that break, man.
I
totally just go.
That's where I'm getting to.
Dan Lanning, sorry to interrupt you, but Dan Lanning himself was like, let's just keep going.
Right.
It makes no sense to take a break.
Right. No, I agree. So when it comes to what will motivate the sport to make some changes, it only comes down to whether or not the sport will be hit in the pocketbooks, and that has to come as a result of maybe lack of interest in ratings. So unless you're like a single degenerate with no friends and nothing to do, no one really with a life can sit around and watch football all weekend long. Unless it's just you and your buddies hanging out.
I think we know a lot of single and married degenerates.
But you like if you want to watch two NFL games on Saturday, two NFL games on Sunday, and you have a relationship where you need to pay attention to someone, at some point you can't just sit there and watch football all day. So it's either the calendar, as we've discussed, where in my opinion a lot of the football watching public has moved on to the NFL, or it could be this. Miami as a college football brand for somebody my age, you're a little bit younger. Like once upon a time, they were awesome and they were really cool. It's been 25, 30 years since Miami's no longer on the level of like a Georgia or an Alabama. Like, look, college football still draws interest based off of brands. So Miami Ole Miss one matchup. Not bad college football brands, but not top shelf football brands. Indiana, most people probably still don't know they're awesome. It's a basketball school. Oregon, I think we can agree, a big brand in this region. Do they move the needle back east? I don't know. But ratings were down for the semifinal. Is it calendar or is it lack of interest in football brands?
Calendar, there's lots here. Calendars is going to be one for sure. Secondarily, I think you're putting these games on a Thursday and a Friday night. Not ideal.
Yeah.
And yet maybe some folks could look at it. Oh, we're ushering in the NFL wildcard weekend. No, man, you're always going to be second fiddle to the NFL. You have to find a way to be playing these games when the NFL is playing its regular season still.
100%.
And you're putting Ole Miss and Miami on a Thursday night. I mean, there are people watching NCIS, man.
Right.
People want their Jag. Jag's not on anymore. NCIS or Hawaii 5-0 reboot.
Right.
This is a problem, man.
Yeah.
Like, you can't have the sport be primarily your Saturday night go-to for 4.5 months and then ask people to be like, oh, Thursday night, I'm home with the kids, got to do this and that. And then piggybacking and do it the next day. I mean, Friday's a little easier, but it's just not ideal. You have to do your best to avoid the NFL at all costs.
100%. And look, I know that we know married people that are degenerates, but if you are single and you have your entire week only to yourself, then you can roll home on a Thursday and spend 4 hours watching Miami Ole Miss, watch 4 hours of Oregon, Indiana, and then watch 8 hours of NFL football on a Saturday. But I don't know if that represents the public that consumes this stuff. So if you go to your spouse and you're like, hey, it's Thursday, I'm watching 4 hours of football tonight, 4 hours of football tomorrow, 8 hours on Saturday, 8 hours on Sunday, you better have a great divorce attorney because that relationship is not lasting.
You better get that Wagyu beef on the grill.
Get the honeydews done before.
That's right.
It's just a lot of football for people to consume. And yes, still 8 to 10 million people is a lot, but that is down year over year. Oh, speaking of which, not to catch you off guard.
I'm ready.
But let's see if you have something in the coffer here.
Ooh.
Sean and I, during Crosstalk today, randomly discussed, because Sean admitted that he read Twilight to impress a woman. He didn't want to read Twilight, but he was dating somebody who he was into. So he pretended to like Twilight and read the book. What is the dumbest, silliest thing that you ever pretended to be into to impress a potential partner?
The Beatles.
The Beatles are awesome.
No, they're not.
You don't like the Beatles?
I mean, they're fine.
Was this for Amanda?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
See, bands are a great one. Because
bands are a good one.
Like you pretend you like Casey Musgraves or something in order to...
mouth.
Yeah. The Mel Robbins podcast.
I don't... It's been too long, man.
You've been out of the game. You're a domesticated indoor cat.
I am, yeah.
But was there anything that Amanda liked that you had to like, okay, I guess I'll do this because I love you and you're my partner?
I was kind of a fraidy cat when it came to horror movies.
Okay.
She's a huge horror movie person.
Okay.
So she's kind of baptized me in that sense.
Okay.
So now we'll just like watch terrifying movies because we're old and we're parents and like you have to break it up over 3 nights, but like, yeah, do you want to watch Conjuring 12 and see something terrifying? Sure.
So you guys watch a lot of movies together?
Well, we used to. Not so much.
But now you have a kid.
Now it's TV. Like,
okay.
If you can get through 55 minutes of an HBO show in one night, that's a win.
Are you guys okay not doing anything? Are you okay being bored together? That's the sign of a healthy relationship.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Well, you got a good one. She's the sweetest. All right, back to the current landscape of the local reaction to the way college football works, because that's what it is. Yep. Last year, Utah took New Mexico's offensive coordinator, their quarterback, their running back, their wide receiver. This year, Michigan has taken Utah's coaches and 5 players. For context, as we talked about last week, Matt Campbell took 19 players from Iowa State to Penn State, and basically their 19 best players, and coaches followed him. So normal people know that if you pay attention to college football, this is how it works. And there are several layers to get into, namely that Kyle Whittingham did not want to leave the University of Utah. He was gently encouraged to find something else to do with his time. He found something else to do with his time, and that is becoming the head coach at the University of Michigan. And part of the job description of that is to make sure that Michigan is in a good place to win football games, which is what Kyle is doing. For the folks on the short bus that can't seem to understand this and can't count to 20 with their shoes on and say things like his legacy is forever changed and he is a traitor and a Judas, to them you say what?
Well, so we are both alumni of the University of Utah. And we have both been journalists for a very long time, and we don't live and die with results because that's the job.
Correct.
You cannot be emotionally invested in whatever team you're covering. Unfortunately, now a very significant part of the media landscape, not just here but everywhere, is filled with folks who are emotionally invested and utilize the access of the press pass to further a message that might be uninformed or skewed or emotionally charged, and that's unfortunate. I mean, I miss reality check pods from 2020, man. Like
Those were the days.
This is once again. Media literacy in this country is a huge problem.
Mm-hmm.
Because so much of what people are getting now is through social media, which is often false. Case in point, stuff coming across your timeline that Dylan Raiola is in the transfer portal, which he is not. He is still at Oregon.
Thank you for clearing that up.
I got you. So, and a byproduct of this is there are folks who are in positions of what I perceive to be luxury and power, having jobs that a lot of other people would like, and they are furthering a false message to the masses, basically, that whether it's directly or kind of maybe not so directly, what's happened at Utah is something that people were waiting for a long time to happen, and it happened. But no one in a million years, billion years, trillion years could have predicted that Sharon Moore would be fired in the manner that he was fired at a blue blood like Michigan, which was already dealing with a gamut of other issues before this happened. So Utah probably were like, you know what? It's time. We have our guy. As you've said on air, donors were stoked about Morgan, but nobody could have predicted that Kyle and the Michigan job would meet in tandem.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle was not the first guy on their list. He wasn't the second guy on their list.
Yeah.
This cannot be understated. So again, I'm painting a very broad brush picture here, but the emotional intelligence, as you mentioned, is unfortunately tanking right now, because we always say, like, I don't want to tell you how to fan, but like we kind of have to, man. Like we've reached the point where these people anonymously are attacking Kyle's kids on the internet.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Yeah.
Like this is there's got to be a no means stop. There's got to be a line in the sand. And again, as I said last week and the week before, this program isn't where it is. It does not exist in its present form without Kyle Whittingham.
Yeah.
And for people to pretend like it would is not only asinine, it's illogical.
Yeah.
So if we're talking about the guys that went with Kyle, you can be upset that he took one of the best offensive line coaches in the country. You can be upset that he took Kyle's gone through too many OCs over the years. That Utah fans are probably upset that the one that kind of showed out pretty well in 1 year went with them.
Mm-hmm.
You can be mad about Lewis Powell. This is the way it works. If you cannot handle it, then maybe you should turn in your fan card, man, because there is no excuse for berating a guy like that who basically, without him, your fandom doesn't exist in its current form. There is no excuse for going after his family online. This is the type of behavior that is a hive mind mentality that is so troubling, but unfortunately so pervasive. And again, to me, it circles back to the messaging that is being pushed in their direction.
Mm-hmm.
And it's being pushed in their direction by people who shouldn't be pushing the type of messaging, innuendo, whatever, but unfortunately they are. And this is it's a very complicated swamp we're dealing with.
Right. Well, and as far as telling people how to fan, it just shouldn't have to be said that don't attack the coach's family online. It should not have to be said. Like, that should be implied. And also stop tagging family members of 18-year-olds that got a better offer and more money to go do what's best for them and their family. Like, I don't know what the numbers look like, but do you understand how much of a difference in a family's life a young man who suddenly is able to make $2 or $3 million a year playing football can do? I mean, a lot of these kids, and I'm not going to say any names, but a lot of these kids grow up in places and, in houses that are impoverished. And
yeah, they're in a different socioeconomic bracket.
I mean, you can go look up, Bad News Virginia, where Michael Vick was raised and Allen Iverson was raised, and how many people that they drug out of impoverished scenarios. So shame on you for attacking an 18-year-old that has a chance to change the lives of the people that raised him.
Well, and again, this is also cyclical because I'm sure there were Tennessee fans who were up in arms when Celeste Moa decommitted from Tennessee and decided to go play at Utah. And maybe we didn't see those messages, but that's beside the point. We can't kick the can down the road and not be held accountable for what we do, what we say, how we act, and the fact that this is all largely done anonymously.
That's the thing that kills me.
To me, is like, listen, man. There was once upon a time when, like, if the teacher at recess saw you being a punk, like, you got a swift kick in the ass, or you got sent to the principal's office, and your parents were called, and you were terrified. So why is it okay for these grown-ass people, men and women, mostly men, to act this way anonymously? I'm worried, man. I'm worried because if you think about this is how they act when it comes to something as largely, if you really think about it, kind of pointless. This is entertainment. This is an escape.
Yeah.
How are they acting in their day-to-day lives? It's like, come on, guys. We got to be better than this because this is showing your ass.
Yeah.
Like this is Utah's fan base. Basically, it's a terrible look. It's a truly, truly terrible look. And there's so many parts to this, the inferiority complex of the overall fan mindset of folks who live here. I get it, but you guys gotta cowboy up a little bit.
It's a fascinating psychological study and conversation because, and we've talked about the revenue that's generated by rage baiting people algorithmically to argue with each other. I mean, that's what the people that own these social media companies are doing to the general public. They are pushing content that they know you're going to react to in a negative way, whether it's sports or politics, because that leads to engagement, and then they can sell another ad for a erectile dysfunction pill or something. Like, that's how the whole thing works.
Addiction.
Yes, that's the whole thing. Like this whole new AI thing, it's like, we're not here to replace your social media. We're here to replace your mother.
You know I'm out on AI.
Well, I mean, but the point is, like, these people their goal is to co-opt your mind as much as possible, to take up as much time out of your day as possible, and then lead you to engage with other people that think differently. So you're just arguing. But when we leaned into the monetization of social media and people can use AI and false names and things to present a false front and then get paid for it, that to me is where we jump the shark. Because initially, early on, there was a push, at least on Twitter or X, where you actually weren't allowed to post under anonymous screen. You had to prove that it was you. But once we went away from that, and then once people were able to monetize a false front online, they make up a dumb, stupid name with Ute this or BYU that.
Beautiful Ute 25.
Whatever it is. And they sent out a tweet about Kyle and his daughter. They get 5 likes that are sick.
Yeah.
I got 5 likes.
Other Utah fans
from
think
other
like I do.
Miserable losers. But the toothpaste is out of the tube, to use the entirely tired cliche. The question I always have is how much of this online discourse bleeds into the real world, and I don't really know what the answer is.
I agree. It's unfortunate, and maybe it's my fault for giving too much credence to the loud folks in the corner, because the loudest folks are often heard because of this, as the algorithms have shown us. But we're in new territory. I mean, we're in full on delusion mode, where I don't know, I can't remember the last time the state of Utah has dealt with something like this.
Which is why I think the reaction is what it is. We're not used to it, and so many people here don't pay attention to anything other than what's going on here.
Yep.
We've always talked for years, is this an NBA market or a Jazz market? It's a Jazz market.
Yeah.
And, if you pay attention to, how many people knew that Matt Campbell took 19 players with him to Penn State? How many people knew that Kurt Cignetti basically brought everybody with him?
Yep.
Do you remember that Utah pillaged New Mexico's coaching staff?
But it only affected them positively.
Exactly, right? So, you can't have it both ways. And I don't know that this is really a reaction from what I would perceive to be the typical minority. It feels a little bit more widespread. I'm hearing from friends of mine that are Ute fans that are upset about this.
They're upset in what vein?
That Kyle is taking players and coaches. And I either don't respond or send back, have you been paying attention to the way the sport works? Just because it's your team now,
Yeah. And again, who's to say that even if Kyle had stayed, that some of these players were guaranteed to stay at Utah
Absolutely.
anyways?
Right.
Smith Snowden was having a bunch of teams chase him for a long time, particularly the team down south.
Yeah.
Who's to say that Dallas Vakalahi didn't have suitors in the Big Ten if Kyle had decided to stay? This is, this is a topic that we could go hours and hours on. But yeah, I think to me the inflection point, honestly, was the terribleness, the gross kind of reaction to the Keanu Tanuvasa stuff. That was when I started to realize, yikes, man, this is vile.
Yeah.
This is very odd to be treating a young man like this. Probably a guy who is the same age as a lot of these people's kids, but maybe we were sheltered in that sense. Maybe the kind of the stereotypical everybody's nice in Utah. Maybe that led us to believe that it was always going to be like this. Or maybe I just wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, the thing is, everybody is not nice here. It's a false veneer of kindness to your face, and then when you turn around, the knife goes directly into your back. And I'm one that says, stab me in my heart, please. Stab me. Well, don't stab me at all.
Please don't.
The preference is don't do that. But if you're going to, let me then do it to my front. Don't be like, hey, you're awesome, whatever, love you, then wait till I turn around.
Yeah, don't be nice to me and then not invite me to Costa Vida.
100%. By the way, Cafe Rio, dude, it has gone way downhill.
Dude, it's been gone for years.
Yeah, Costa Vida might be better at this point.
I haven't been.
But ultimately, social media and the ability to have a false front with a account that isn't really you is the perfect place for people that exist in passive-aggressive communication structures. And I find it exists in Utah in a way that I don't think it exists in a lot of places.
Well, that's a good point. That is kind of up the typical Utah alley if you really think about it.
Right.
The state of Utah.
Yep.
But
I
am honestly, I'm flabbergasted to see this reaction, truly, especially considering the fact that Kyle wanted to come back to Utah, and people are managing to twist this into oh, Kyle had the Michigan job the whole time.
Right. Yeah.
But again, we're to the point now where you can't really fight crazy. People are going to believe what they want to believe.
Right.
And that goes back to my point of I just think people want to be told what they feel as opposed to being challenged to think differently.
Yeah.
And this is a perfect example of that in the realm of, sports in this state.
What's the Mark Twain quote? No amount of evidence is going to convince an idiot. We live in a country right now where we can't even agree upon what is murder. Can we just agree that murder's bad? Can we just exist in that space?
I'm with you on that one.
You reference BYU, and I do want to do a quick RSL thought with you before we get out of here. But BYU, one player to Michigan, Max Alford, who's a 3-star guy. He's probably going to
whose uncle is the running backs coach there.
Correct.
Whose dad, the late Aaron Alford, who I knew well when I was at the U.
Nice.
Great guy.
Mm-hmm.
Coach with Kyle.
Yeah.
So familial ties, kind of like Lewis Powell and Celeste Moa.
Yes, Lewis is his uncle, correct? And so we should keep those things in mind. But he's the only player that BYU has lost to Michigan. The word out there, and it's no surprise, is that Jay wanted Desatawala, the kid, to follow him because he's awesome. Go Bountiful. But only one player to Michigan is from BYU. Does that surprise you at all?
When Kyle hired Jay, I assumed that there would have been folks from BYU who would maybe be tempted to go, but BYU's done a hell of a job, man.
Yeah.
They have not only kept on to Satawala, Isaiah Glasker's coming back. I mean, LJ Martin, they've done a good job, and they've done a pretty good job in the portal too. I mean, they got Cade Olave, who is a Bingham High kid who was really good for some bad Cal teams.
He was all ACC first team a year ago
for a long time, so he's going to be able to slide right into where Jack Kelly was. I think if I was going to advise Utah fans who are angry, and obviously they come to me for all sorts of advice.
Yeah, they do.
Just say wait, give Morgan time to see how it works. Don't expect 11-1 or 12-0 in year one. It's not going to happen. I promise you, it's not going to happen. And if it does, you can rub it in my face and you can anonymously tweet at me all you want.
If Morgan Scally goes 12-0 in his first year, I will do a week of shows naked.
Ooh.
We're on YouTube, dude.
Oh, yeah.
We're on YouTube, too.
I will not do that.
So, yeah, the proof of, we use this phrase, proof of concept, what Kalani and his staff have been able to do, even in the wake of losing one of their best coaches, is impressive.
Yeah.
Because people want to play for Kalani.
Yeah.
They want to play offense for Aaron Roderick because they've shown in the last 2 years, we're either in the title game or we're close to being in the title game.
Yeah.
It will take Morgan some time. It's the same reason why towards the tail end of the Pac-12 era, Utah was where it was because they had proof of concept. It worked when everybody was healthy.
Yeah, BYU Athletics is in a good spot, man. That basketball team is really good. Fun game in the Huntsman
Richie Saunders
over the weekend. Yeah, Richie's your guy.
I said he was an NBA guy last year.
And you are correct.
I know.
When he first, we won't get into a Kevin Young developmental debate on the show, but Richie has improved.
Boxing one.
Do you even know what that is?
I think it's when there's a box and then there's one guy standing out of it.
You know what? Fine. We can. That's fine. Have you been to RSL's practice facility in Harriman?
I have.
Dude.
It is a hall.
There's no direct flights. I looked it up. It is. I cannot. I did not know that portion of our state was a thing.
Had you never been there before?
No.
Wow.
Why? It's 55 minutes from my house.
Yeah.
Not going out there. Are you kidding?
It's 30 minutes to Bangerter, and then the real hall is weaving through whatever that is.
Whatever that is the right way to put it. I'm like, where am I? Is this the Truman Show? When I got off I-15, I'm like, I'm almost here. No chance.
When you fly south, I always manage to look out the window at the exact same time to see the red roof, and I'm like, it is absurd how far this thing is.
Yeah.
It's nice. It's very nice.
No,
they've got a great setup, but proud of you for going, man. Doing journalism. Sat down with my guy, Jason Kreis, for an interview that ran on KUTV. Caught up with Kurt, Tony, and we did a little roundtable thing. Are the DPs coming?
The DPs are on the way. I don't know much more than that, but I do think reinforcements are on the way. But here's the problem. Again, what is taking so long? The players have reported.
Yep.
It's preseason. The first game is about a month away. So even if you sign somebody now, then you have to go through the process of getting them on the ground and then acclimating them to the system. I just feel like this is a front office that drags its heels. We were doing this last year during the transfer portal windows.
So the transfer portal closes the second week of April.
Okay.
But to your point, if you strike a deal next week, second to last week of January, it might take a month to 6 weeks to get that person on the ground.
Right.
Because of, unfortunately, I don't even know what we're Justice Department, whatever, our immigration status, whatever in this country makes it hard for anybody to try to do anything normally.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if you're asking me how many good new players do they need in order to have a shot, I'm saying 3 to 4.
Yeah.
Because you not only lose Vera, hothead, I think there's a way to replace him if you can get the right guy. I think Ojeda's a huge loss. He was always available, always steady, great partnership with Anelli. Our guy is no longer the mayor of Cruise Island because Cruise Island does not exist.
Yeah, too bad.
So I don't know. I guess I'll have to go back and watch your exclusive on KMYU.
The one tangible takeaway is they are changing their formation. Shout out 4-1-2-1-2, diamond midfield. I don't know if they're doing that, but they're moving Diego centrally. He's going to be the 10. It's his show now. So there's that.
Interesting. And, he's a great player, but he needs 2 guys next to him that are probably a little better for this team to have a puncher's chance to do anything next year.
Yeah. And Jason's such an urgent, prescient personality. I'm just surprised that they haven't gotten anything done. All right, go hang out with Leo. Thanks for your time, buddy.
Appreciate you.
Chris Camerani, college football insider, savant, expert from The Athletic. Get him on social at Chris Camerani is where you find him for all of his work. Want to let you know that League One Volleyball is Salt Lake's first professional volleyball league, and the next home game is January the 22nd. Get tickets at lovbsl.com. That's lovbsl.com. All right, we'll switch gears. We have 2 hours down. We have 2 hours to go. Zach Harper and Tim McMahon will join us this hour, so we'll switch from football to basketball and get back to a little football in the 5 o'clock hour before we say goodnight. Don't forget at 6:30, Utah men's basketball will begin as far as the pregame coverage, and then you'll hear the Utes take on Texas Tech tonight. Really, really good basketball team. We'll be pulling for Al as always. So get into a little hoops coming up on the other side of a Wednesday edition of The Drive, right? You know, it's been so long. We started the bit with Zach Harper and Pitbull. Do you remember the origin story? It's been like 3 years at this point. Do you remember how this started? Was it because of Pitbull's dumb playoff song? Playoffs.
Maybe. I can't really remember either. You might have to ask our guy. I think it may have just been organic, to be honest with you.
All right. Well, it has been too long. And when we play Pitbull on this show, it means it's time for Zach Harper, the great Zach Harper. I was racking my brain earlier, Zach. Do you remember why we started this bit?
I don't know about bit.
All right.
Dumb playoff song, but I do think it was. I think Porter's right. I think it was a little organic. Of maybe you said something irresponsible or incorrect about Pitbull, and I had to correct, and then we kind of went from there.
That never happens, as we all know. But what are you doing these days? I feel like you have 10 different projects. What's the latest with you?
You know what? Every day from 1 to 2 Eastern, so what would that be, 11 to noon Mountain Time. You can hear me on SiriusXM NBA Radio's Deals and Dunks with Mark Stein on Monday and Tuesday, Chris Haynes on Wednesday and Thursday, and then Amin El-Hassan on Fridays.
Didn't I see you with Michelle Beadle doing something on social media?
Oh yeah. That's for this app called Offside, which they've gotten us together to just talk, and then they clip it into things, and there's no way this ends well.
I like Michelle, man. I think she's funny.
Oh, she's great.
Yeah.
She's also the worst and least reliable for good judgment. So putting us together is not an amazing idea in terms of job security.
I just watched your latest story. Looks like you're living a good life, Zach. Are you ready for the random topic of the day today that just kind of came up organically earlier?
Absolutely.
I think you'll be good with this. So Sean O'Connell, our midday host, he's married, so, poor guy. And we were doing a little crosstalk together, and the topic came up. So Sean was dating a girl a number of years ago. And he was trying to impress her, so he agreed to read the Twilight books. He didn't want to, but he read the Twilight books. So the topic is, what have you pretended to be into or pretended to like in order to impress a potential partner?
That's a really good one. Probably The Wizard of Oz.
Wait, what? Like the movie?
Yeah. Long ago, I was in a relationship with someone who was obsessed with The Wizard of Oz from like a young age. And at one point lived together, and in a separate room, there was basically a Wizard of Oz shrine.
Oh my gosh.
And I can't even tell you how many times I watched that movie during that relationship.
That really feels like a massive red flag that you should have identified early on.
Yeah, you could say that about a lot of things.
Yeah, mine's the Mel Robbins podcast. I'm like, sweet, I'll listen to Mel Robbins. Let's just smash some Mel Robbins.
Oh, no.
Oh, wait, Abby Wambach has a podcast? Yes, I'm going to fire that one up, too.
Hell yeah.
I mean, ultimately, because the conversation turned into, well, wait a second, what do women have to fake to pretend like they're into something in order to attract men? And the answer is nothing. Women, a decent-looking woman with a good personality can get a date at Jersey Mike's, Zach.
Yeah, I would say not to attract men, but I feel like women will often, just approach the men's interests, of like, okay, he's into this, and what could it be? And it's probably often like Joe Rogan.
Oh, geez.
And that's got to be pretty bad.
Oh, man. Yeah, no, that's fair. Like, give Rogan.
I'm not saying they pretend to be interested, but they probably dabble in that a little bit, and they're like, oh God, this is not going to work out.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah, is Rogan still doing anti-masks, vaccination conversations, or what? I don't listen to the program.
Yeah, I catch it every once in a while because my barber is really into conspiracy stuff.
Okay.
And so, let me tell you, the best case scenario is that you go into that shop and Rogan's on. That's best case scenario. Or maybe every once in a while he'll have a travel show on.
Okay.
But that's that just gives you a glimpse but he's really good at cutting hair.
Hey, look, you got to do what you got to do. And a good haircut in our industry and our business is very important, Zach. There's no doubt. All right, we'll
Absolutely.
actually start with the Jazz. Let's get weird because I
Yeah.
haven't talked to you in a while. And look, he still doesn't guard. None of them do. It is a historically awful defensive basketball team. But this offensive stuff with Keontae is real. It is. And he is just an individual dynamite bucket getter. And he can score at a high clip. And he's making better decisions with the basketball. The efficiency numbers aren't great, but they are better. Again, there's so many moments defensively where I'm like, have you ever done this before? Or are you just losing track? Are you, do you just lose focus?
Yeah.
But, the year 3 jump, Zach, I think it's time to say with Keontae George feels very real.
Oh, it feels very real. And I think it's interesting because I know we've talked about this before. I've talked about this with a few people recently of at Baylor, even in the first 2 seasons in Utah, I watched Keontae George. I'm like, I like what he's doing. I like how he creates a shot. I like a lot of the shots he takes. I think things are, everything looks good until it got to the final product of like, did the shot go in? And first 2 years, he was like 39% both years, right, from the field. And so it didn't go in. And so you start thinking like, maybe I'm just not seeing what I think I see with him. And now this year, he's so much more efficient than he was. And it seems to be justifying a lot of the decisions to like have faith in him and to stick with him. And I don't know if they actually had like real options outside. I know they tried Collier last season for a bit, but they didn't really have another option. But to see the amount he's scoring, and I'm with you, like the efficiency could be better, but the fact that it's at this level with the volume that he's doing after what we saw the last 2 years, I think that's crazy positive for him and just making a massive step forward. He still has a lot of work to do, and the defense is, it almost looks like he's like you're watching me play defense out there. Like it's pretty rough, but for this team and what they're looking for, I think you'll take that offensive step and feel really good about him in year 3.
Yeah, and I'm always hesitant when it comes to a team that's more or less unserious about competing, and that still is who they are because we'll get to the motivation of what they need to do moving forward. But when a team is not winning at a high clip, I'm always a little wary about a player that just gets a bunch of usage on a team that's bad and suddenly scores a bunch of points, right? So I've been trying to watch it through the prism of what would this look like if the Jazz were actually playing for something important. Could he do this in playoff settings? Can he do this when you're trying to win something that's actually real? But ultimately, the good news is they actually found something that we weren't expecting because there are questions about everybody else outside of Lowry and Walker who was hurt. So we still don't know about Bryce. He has moments. We still don't know about Collier, moments as well. There's some things to like about Walter Clayton Jr., but he's a rookie, and Taylor Hendricks and Cody Williams may not even be NBA players. So the fact that they did get one answer this year that, okay, one of our young pieces actually might be part of this future, that has to be viewed as really good news, I think.
Absolutely. No, it definitely does. And look, if this is what he is for the next, 12 to 15 years, okay, probably not good enough when they're playing, real basketball or trying to play real basketball and actually compete. I know the numbers look good, but it's more about, the process and everything. But I also don't think he's done developing. I think this is huge for him in the sense that, if anything, this just gives him confidence that the work you do will pay off and to keep working, right? And so, I think that for the Jazz, yes, you can question, are these numbers real? Do these numbers mean anything? Like, this is a really bad team. But also, like, he's done it against some pretty good teams, right? It's not like he's just doing it against the Wizards and the Nets. Like, he's done it against some pretty good competition. And to me, that's the encouraging sign of it's not just beating up on the other bad teams. Like, he's doing it against a variety of opponents. And to me, that's something you can build on.
Yeah, and also doing it on the road, too. It's not just a home-heavy split. All right, just one more general Jazz question. I feel like the consistent sentiment and maybe the consensus is that they still are going to do whatever they have to do. And in my opinion, they should do this. I don't think they have a choice to maintain their asset this year, which is top 8. And then it goes to OKC if it's out of the top 8. Because next year, it finally goes away. The Derek Favors trade that we've talked about for years, it finally goes away next year. And then the anticipation is this next season is when they will actually be serious about competing, and they want Lauri Markkanen to be a part of that. Is that your understanding, as we're just a few weeks away from the trade deadline, as far as where the Jazz are at with their thought process and building this roster?
Yeah, like, look, you never know with the Angels, right? Like, they could be saying one thing and they could be working on something completely different behind the scenes, and I don't say that as a negative thing. I personally think GMs, coaches, they should lie to us constantly. So and do
they do
behind the scenes.
Yeah, and they do.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, they do. They do when they're talking about, this isn't, we're just now starting the rebuild or whatever that was last year. This is, like, I think you have to protect the asset this year. If they don't, and they want to get this, we talked about this in, leading into the Wemby draft, the dumb pride of it all. Like, okay, great. Like, you can be a little more competitive than people thought, and you cannot be a completely, dog bleep team. But you have 3 really impressive prospects at the top of this draft. And it's not like the Wemby one where it's like, oh, we got to get this guy. Like, no, you can end up with any of those 3. And I think it works for the future of this franchise. So that should be the goal, is making sure you protect your pick. You get as, the best odds you can for landing in that top 3, maybe even top 4. Like, who knows? Caleb Wilson might be really good for UNC. And you have to go get one of those guys. And then next year, it can't be another year of this, like, 1 foot in, 1 foot out, or everything is just horrendous like it was last year. Like, they've got to start building something. And if that's going to be with Lauri, I guess that's fine. I don't think everything needs to be all these players on the same timeline. Like, I've never really subscribed to that. But from everything you hear around the league, it doesn't feel like Markkanen is really on the block or available. At the same time, that could change if someone says, hey, here's a bunch of first-round picks. We'd like Lauri Markkanen.
Yeah, and, if I'm a GM of one of these other teams that have some draft capital and needs a little bit of a jolt, I'm calling Danny and talking to him about Lauri. Like, maybe it's because he's buried out here, and maybe it was because last year they didn't play him enough to the tune of $100,000 fine. But Zach, when he plays, I mean, he's awesome. He's really good.
He's amazing.
Yeah, he's a really good player. I mean, and honestly, and this is just my opinion, I get your point about, lining players up with timelines, because sometimes that can get tricky. But if you look at the landscape of the Western Conference, the Jazz are still 3 to 4 years away, and 5 to 6 acquisitions that have to work out from throwing punches with the top 4 or 5 teams in the league. Lauri doesn't fit the timeline, I don't think. And so if I'm a GM, I'm calling and talking to Danny about this, and I'm actually entertaining whatever it takes to meet his ask, whatever that is. I don't think it's going to happen. I guess what I'm saying is I think it should. I think there are a lot of teams that could really use him.
Especially if you're a team in the East, right? Like,
right.
I would, if I'm Detroit, look, Detroit's had a great start to the season. That offense sucks.
Yeah.
Like, it's a lot like Houston last year, where it's just get it up on the glass and hopefully we'll go grab an offensive rebound and score or get to the free throw line, which works in the regular season, but you get to the postseason, that's just not a serious way of approaching things. And so, like, Detroit, you could slot him next to Jalen Duren really nicely, with Cade Cunningham obviously as the star. And that looks like a team to me that can win the East. Like, if I'm Detroit, I'm asking Danny, like, what does this take, right? Can I interest you in a Jaden Ivey and some picks or something like that? Like, that would be what I'm dangling out there. And I think a lot of teams have to look at themselves going into this trade deadline over the next, like, 3-ish weeks and say, that's probably the best player actually on the market. Like, there's not really a market for John Morant. Giannis is so worried about the PR of it all, he's not going to request a trade, although maybe his agent will, and that's his loophole, right? But, like, it's probably going to be Lauri is the best player you can get, but you have to know, like, this is a price tag, and if you're in the East, everything's wide open. I mean, the Knicks don't like each other right now, and they're the favorites to win the East, right? Like, that thing is wide open, even more open than we thought it was.
Do you think it is understood across the landscape of the league just really how good Markkanen is? Because I can remember last year, It may have been Mark Spears. Someone on ESPN was like, yeah, the Warriors had a deal in place, but they didn't want to part with Brandon Pajemski. And I was like, what? That's
Right.
like, you didn't want to trade Pajemski to get Marketing? Like, sometimes I just feel like there's not enough respect for Lowry across the league.
That to me is like an ego thing of we found this guy and we like him, so we don't want to give him up in a trade.
Jeez.
Pajemski's a nice player.
Sure he
You
is.
can find 50 Pajemskis out there.
Right.
Like that makes me, when it comes down to that, it makes me think like, why are you letting that information get out if you're the Warriors?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
You look so dumb in that. And yeah, no, I think for the most part, I think it's more about the asking price versus how good is Lowry, right? Because it's just, as we saw with Trae Young, as we're seeing with John Morant, and granted, Lowry's a very different player than those guys, but as you see with it, things have tightened up around the league in terms of what the collective bargaining agreement has meant for what people are willing to give up. Now, we also just saw Desmond Bane go for 4 firsts in the offseason, so that can change. But I wouldn't expect assets and picks to just fly around like it used to. And to me, based on what Danny's probably asking for, I don't think it's about marketing. I think it's about, all right, are we stacking this $40 million contract properly with our books?
Yeah. Since you brought Trey up, the Shams report is like, hey, his preferred destination is Washington. I'm like, liar,
Yeah.
You're lying, but whatever. That's how it ended. What do you make of this entire deal? And does it indicate Atlanta's got something else up their sleeve?
I do think that was his preferred destination once he found out that's the only place that wants him.
Exactly.
Yeah, like I buy that. Like, I mean, also, the Hawks front office came out and did their little press conference. They're like, we love what we got back in the trades.
Right.
There's no way. There's no way. Like, and I don't blame. Like, you took over this situation. You got what you could get for him in this amount of time with what you felt the team needed the rest of the season and moving forward. I get that. This is not like if you polled anybody 6 months ago and said, hey, Trae Young's going to get traded this year for C.J. McCollum and Corey Kispert and no picks. And the fact that we weren't even sure, like, is Atlanta going to have to attach a pick to him? That's what Mark Stein was talking about. Like, is Atlanta going to have to attach a pick to Trae Young to get this deal done? Everyone would have been like, that's ridiculous. You don't make that trade. So there's no way they're happy with it. I think they're happy with the addition by subtraction. Like, Trae was just not I get it. He gets assists and, 11, 12 a game, all that stuff. I get that. But he's a guy that gets assists rather than, like, runs an offense, And I think that will be fine in Washington for the time being. But he doesn't play defense. He's not a good shooter, even though he takes shots like he is. And he's hurt often. He turns the ball over like crazy. Like, yeah, his numbers look great for scoring and assists, but he's just like, for a team that's trying to be serious about winning, he's just not that guy until he decides to play a different brand of basketball.
Yeah, which I just don't see happening. Let's, you do a lot of stuff with the Athletic as far as the draft goes. And, the reality is when it comes to this top 8 protected pick the Jazz have, the only way to protect it entirely is actually to finish in the bottom 4. Because if you finish if you finish with the 8th worst record, there's still a 42% chance that you fall. It goes to 14% if you're 7th. It goes to pretty much 95% if you're 6th, and then it goes up incrementally. But if you're in the top 4, you cannot fall past 7. So I actually think at some point we could see the Jazz try to get into the mix there. Is there, when it comes to the conversation around who the best player in college basketball is or the best pro prospect, I mean, A.J. DeBonsa was up at the Huntsman Center on Saturday for BYU, and I've been watching him all year. He's really good, man. Like he checks all the boxes. Have you landed on who you think the best prospect is in this draft? And then attendant to that question, how many legitimate difference makers do you think are out there in the upcoming draft?
Yeah, I mean, that second question is a really good question. Like, I think Peterson is awesome. I think DeBansa's awesome. I think Boozer is an awesome college player. I'm still trying to figure out how that translates to the NBA level as a difference maker. But if you end up with him at like 2 or 3, I don't think that's crazy. If you go for him at 1, I do think it's a risk because of the other two guys. I would probably, like, if I had to choose, I'd probably go with Debanza just because of the size, the athleticism compared to Peterson. Peterson's a much better scorer in terms of, I think, what the NBA will look like. But Debanza's, his length, his size, his athleticism, and he can score. He's got some skills. I question the shot and I question some of the decision making, but he's also still so young. I would go with him and take the risk. I've heard some people kind of question around the NBA. Is he going to be a head case? Is he going to be easy to work with? And I don't know how fair that is to him. That's just things I've heard. But like I'll take the risk on a kid who's 6'8", 6'9", maybe still growing, leaps out of the gym, is doing windmill dunks in the lane, on half court drives, everything. Like can really fill it up. Looks like he has good footwork. Looks like the shot will be very workable at some point. I mean, he ticks all these boxes, and I'll go for that potential because I don't know there's a surefire, like, this is the guy. But maybe Peterson will be able to, differentiate himself more this season.
Yeah, you need to see more of him because he's been hurt, but only time will tell. Yeah. Zach, thanks for the time, man. It's been too long. Hope you're well. We'll chat soon, okay?
Anytime. Dale.
All right. The great Zach Harper, Pitbull's #1 fan, and he writes for The Athletic, does a lot of draft stuff, does their weekly power rankings. You can hear him on SiriusXM. He does a bunch of podcasts, very busy guy. You can get the links to his work at Talk Hoops is where you find him. All right, we'll catch a quick break. Tim McMahon covers the Utah Jazz for the NBA. We'll get back to some college and pro football storylines in the 5 o'clock hour of the show on a Wednesday afternoon. Keep it here on ESPN 700. About an hour from now, we'll bring in Automatic Andy, one of the best to ever do it at the University of Utah. Andy Phillips will stop by. Utah basketball tonight. Tough one on the road against Texas Tech. Jazz continue their road trip. It's a 5-game roadie. They're in Chicago tonight. Our next guest covers, well, the NBA as a whole. And when the Jazz are interesting, he covers the Jazz. He's our buddy Tim McMahon on a Wednesday. Hello, Tim. Happy Wednesday, sir. How are you?
Howdy, partner. I'll be covering the Jazz this week. We got a baseball series, Jazz versus Mavs in Dallas. I'm going to see them twice.
That's true. Is this a new scheduling wrinkle? Because I've seen it more consistently over the past couple of years. Is this something the league is doing more consistently now?
Yeah, they started this after the pandemic. It's a way to try to kind of reduce the travel at least a little bit. I kind of like them, especially it's a good way to be able to, for a team that you maybe don't see that often, to be able to be around them a little bit. They won't have a practice between the days because they're on a back-to-back, obviously. But I am looking forward to catching up with a lot of Jazz folks over the next few nights.
That's right. Jazz in Chicago, then a back-to-back both in Dallas Thursday, Saturday against the Mavericks. And we actually saw the Jazz play the Mavericks last week, and they got a win. Tim, the reality right now with this team is that when Lowry and Keontae and randomly enough Yusuf Nurkic play, they're beating some pretty good basketball teams,
Yeah, the Mavericks are not on that list of pretty good teams.
Correct.
Clear,
Yep.
but the Cavaliers, hey, that's a nice win. I mean, it wasn't too long ago that there was the back-to-back for the Jazz where they beat the Pistons and the Spurs. Those are two really good teams. And so, yeah, if you're sitting there in Salt Lake City and you're hoping to see the Jazz turn the corner, I think there is some hope that next year you get a real deal competitive team where, the creative license with the injury report is not going to be a factor, because we've talked about the leap that Keontae George has made this year to where he is a foundation piece at this point. Lowry obviously has been at that level. He's been an all-star. He's having arguably the best season of his career. I mean, over the last 20 games, they're 8-6 when Lowry plays. Now, 8-6-6. 8 wins,
right.
6 losses when he plays, and then 6 losses when he sits.
Right.
But, with those two guys, and then, you're hoping some of these other young guys catch on. Obviously, they've got still a lot of hope and optimism that Ace Bailey can develop into a star as well. It's going to take some time. He's raw, but there's a lot of talent there. And there's going to be some flexibility this summer to try to put some more pieces around them. But the rest of the season is obviously going to be frustrating, cause for some eye rolling, those sorts of things, just because they have to keep a top 8 protected pick.
Yeah, and as I've been talking about on the show, because I hear a lot of people do say, okay, well, top 8 protected. Well, the only way to guarantee it, Tim, is bottom 4, because it incrementally the chances. And look, if you're 5, it's like 96% chance.
Right.
If you're, but the only way to guarantee it is bottom 4. And most draft experts, and I'll cede to them, believe this is a 3-player superstar tier. And then beyond that, who knows? I wouldn't be surprised if at some point we actually, and I don't know how they're going to approach it because we heard what Austin said to start the year, but I don't think 8's good enough for them. I think they've got to do what they've got to do to get maybe into the bottom 4.
Well, I would say, one, what Austin said at the beginning of the year, you can believe his words or your eyes.
Sure.
2, they're not getting in the bottom 4, because let me just tell you a little secret here. They aren't the only team that's tanking.
You don't say.
Yeah, a little secret. Trae Young did. Now, he had 3 20-plus games in the last 4 games he played for the Hawks, but dang it, has a really deep thigh contusion now, and that knee's acting up again, and he'll be reevaluated after the All-Star break. Then they'll reevaluate him in mid-March, and then they'll say, well, we're just going to shut him down the rest of the season. I'll tell you how that's going to play out. There's too many teams that are significantly worse than the Jazz already that Utah's not going to be able to catch up to. So, I think I think the Jazz are going to end up somewhere in that probably 6-ish range. They're not going to end up in the bottom 4.
Sacramento, New Orleans, Indiana, Washington, Brooklyn are the teams that are worse than the Jazz right now.
The good news I have for you there is New Orleans is definitely not tanking because all that is a complete embarrassment because their pick is owed to Atlanta. So that's the best news I can give you there.
Yeah.
And, Vivek might be too proud to really tank. Who knows? He's not exactly a guy who's got a track record for savvy team building decisions.
So when it comes to the motivation to keep the asset, but also hold on to Lowry, I feel like, and I've heard you talk about this, that's kind of the mindset as of now, right? The approach as we move forward?
I'll be surprised if Lowry's traded. I'll be surprised if there's anything that is even like a serious consideration there. I can just tell you the perception around the league is you can call the Jazz on him, but you better be ready to back up the Brinks truck and dump all the picks and swaps. And I just don't see that happening.
Any other potential movement? I mean, as I referenced, like Nurkic has been awesome, randomly enough. I don't know, man. Boston needs a big. There's got to be some teams around the league that are looking around the landscape of the, I don't know, I guess I would say 7 to 8 teams that are unserious about competing and wondering if they can pick off a vet or two for like a playoff run. Maybe the Jazz are in the mix for something like that.
Yeah, listen, obviously the Ainge family phone lines are open. I don't know that they're necessarily like eager to dump Nurkic. I've actually heard that there's some consideration on having him back next year, probably as a backup. But like, if there's value to be had there for any of the vets on the roster, it's not like the Jazz are beholden to any of them. I would say Keontae's as close to untouchable as you can get. Ace is on that list, and then Lowry is not untouchable, but I would say reasonably unattainable. And other than that, I think the Jazz are open for business. I don't know how likely it is that they'll get anything done before the deadline. But again, you have to just, as you're evaluating the Jazz, the goal is to put together a team that can contend, but also they want to be competitive next year, right? This has not been fun for Ryan Smith.
Yeah.
Right. He's had to kind of bite his lip, sit through this for the last few years. He wants to see a team that the fans are proud of, and that is fun for them. He's a fan, right? Ultimately, he's a fan who owns the team. He wants a fun, competitive team, and I think that that's possible for the Jazz next season.
Yeah, I mean, some things have to fall their way, and I guess we could define what fun and competitive means. But if we move over into the space, because you referenced Ace Bailey, we're going to long game it with this kid. He's so young, and there are so many moments where you're like, oh, wow, okay, that looks really, really special. So Lowry, Keontae, I'm going to put Walker in there, and then Ace, and we kind of put them to the side. But
I'm not, the Walker thing, I'm putting a wait and see label on.
Okay.
And I've told you this. What I'll say about Walker is he will either be in Utah next year or they will get some kind of value for him to facilitate his departure via sign and trade since he's a restricted free agent.
Yeah. And what I should have been clear. What I'm saying is those are players that I actually think are good NBA basketball players. Your point about your point about Walker is well taken, and we always appreciate it when you bring some intel. Because, look, there are nights where Bryce looks really good. There are nights where Isaiah looks like he's a legitimate guy. I could keep going down the list. Taylor Hendricks. Cody's been a little bit better as of late. I thought we were going to see more from Filipowski. But my point is, like, the good news is Keontae has proven to be an answer to a question. But the rest of the roster, Tim, I'm still kind of wondering about. What about you?
I think that's fair. I also think that Keontae is proof that a lot can change with an individual player, even in the span of a summer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because how did you feel about him at the end of last season? Well, Bill already made it very clear how he felt about him in their exit interview, which they both, discussed publicly and bluntly. And the guy had an unbelievable summer and came back a different player. So I would agree with you that none of those guys have earned the right to be considered like solid parts of the franchise's future. But, I would just say have an open mind that can change.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, with all of these guys, there are moments where like, okay, we got something here, but as Jerry West said, the difference between good and great is consistency. So, moving off the Jazz, let's talk about these these Dallas Mavericks and all of these reports about the health of Anthony Davis and what does that mean for their decision making process and what is next for them? I mean, they've obviously got a stud in Cooper. He's fun to watch and he's great, but how are they going to approach the rest of the season, Tim?
Well, listen, they're not going to say it out loud, but they ought to be tanking too.
For sure.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's just look at this logically. They have the guy you can build around for a long time to come, and that you better get it right or you won't have him for a long time to come. So the most important part of the rebuild they have in place. They have one first-round pick of their own under control for the duration of Cooper Flack's rookie contract.
Oh, dear.
That is this season, right? The rest of them, 27, 28, 29, or 30, either outright or via swaps, you gave up to build a finals team around Luka Doncic. Okay, we understand what happened there. It's still just mind-meltingly incredible that those developments occur, but that's the case, right? This is the one pick they control of their own until 2031. They are 10 games under 500 right now. AD is out for at least 6 weeks. Kyrie's not coming back until after the All-Star break at the earliest. It's very much a TBD on whether either one of those guys play for the Mavericks the rest of the season because it makes sense for the Mavericks to be bad. They've got a great opportunity to benefit from being bad, and they have that opportunity one time in a loaded draft, one time for the duration of Cooper Flack's rookie contract. So you tell me what you think the Mavericks should do the rest of the season.
Yeah, no, I'm not pushing back on any of your points, and it's the unfortunate situation that the Jazz find themselves in too. The thing that makes sense is the thing that's a tough ask for your fans. But because of the health issues with AD and Kyrie, if they're taking calls on them, what sort of market would there be out there?
They are not taking calls on Kyrie.
Okay.
And I think that's a pretty concrete approach. They want Kyrie to be in their starting lineup at point guard next season. They are definitely taking calls and making calls on Anthony Davis. And I've talked about this situation a lot because there's a lot of attention on it. Rich Paul wants Anthony Davis traded, right? His agent. He wants him traded because the Mavericks have given him, let's see about an extension. And a left C to him is a no. So he wants to get him somewhere where he thinks an extension is a possibility this summer. The Mavericks are certainly willing to make an AD deal, but they have to feel like it's a good deal for them. And I honestly, I think I don't have clarity on what exactly that threshold is. I think it's a little bit higher than it realistically should be. And then obviously him being out for at least the next 6 weeks with his hand injury that happened in Utah, that doesn't help his trade value. But the Mavericks front office and ownership kind of got its chest bowed up right now. We're not going to let Rich Paul bully us into doing something that doesn't make sense for us. So we'll see how it plays out. I thought it was going to be tough for them to get an AD deal done that was good for them before he was hurt. And I think it's tougher now that he is hurt.
Can I ask you because of the Mavericks, because of the Atlanta trade with Trey, there were a lot of people that believed that was a move that was made with AD in mind. Is that if there's an Anthony Davis deal out there, does that feel like the most logical landing spot?
I think that's the most logical. There's no question they've had discussions. Because here's the thing. If you're Dallas, to me, the perfect AD deal has some first-round draft compensation. I think multiple picks you're not going to get. They've asked about that New Orleans pick, which is just a great way to have a short conversation. But say, you can get first-round draft compensation from the Hawks. They have a lot of expiring contracts, including, Kristaps Porzingis, so you can bring him back for a couple months.
Gosh.
But it's like Porzingis and Luke Kennard, like they've got some sizable expiring contracts. Reece Shea has come up. There's been pretty strong pushback from Atlanta, but whatever. Like there's some if you're Dallas, you want some blend of expiring contracts because they're one of the most expensive teams in the league, and they're headed to the lottery. That's not good. You can't do that. So expiring contracts, promising young talent, or at least a flyer on a guy with some potential, and some kind of first-round compensation. Some blend of that. But again, I keep pointing to the Kevin Durant return for the Phoenix Suns, right? Just when guys have those kind of contracts and are looking for extensions and there's durability history, to expect that you're going to get some kind of traditional superstar return in this apron era is not realistic.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. Now, there was a time where Ja Morant was one of not just the rising stars in the league, but one of the players debated about whether or not he could be like the face of the NBA. I mean, it wasn't just box office. He was also really good. And, of course, distressed asset is the term that comes to mind as a result of all the stuff that's happened off the floor. It only takes one. As we learned a year ago with the Nico Harris situation, bringing in AD for Luka that reset the Lakers timeline. How real is the noise, surrounding Ja, and do you think a deal is out there that would make sense for both sides?
They have to trade Ja Morant.
Yeah.
It's time. Like, they're not going to get good value for him. He is a drastically distressed asset for a variety of reasons, from all the drama, the off-court controversy, the massive durability issues, the decline in production. He is as distressed of an asset as there is in the league right now. There will be a team, maybe a couple teams that are interested in trying to get him in a buy low kind of thing and seeing if they can resuscitate his career with a change of scenery. Miami's the one that has come up the most often. The Heat have had something like Jimmy Butler was a distressed asset when he ended up in Miami. The Heat have had some success there. I'd have some concerns about, they think Heat culture is the solution for everything. I'd have some concerns about Ja's nocturnal activity in a place like South Beach.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, we'll see. But dude, it's a bad situation in Memphis. He's moped the entire season. Can't stand the coach. He's completely at odds with the front office. He barely ever plays. They're 6-12 when he is in the lineup. You can't have that guy either moping on your bench or pouting on the floor after the trade deadline.
Yeah, no, it feels like it's time for a new start. It's just wild, because once upon a time, a few years back, it was like, watch out for Memphis down the road because they have Ja. Yep. Watch out for Dallas down the road because they've got Luka, and watch out for the Pelicans down the road because they have Zion, right? And all three of those situations have not manifested. Any chance the Pelicans look to move off of Zion Williamson?
They have let it be known that they do not intend to entertain any offers for Zion. Okay. So, barring and nobody's under oath when these things are reported or whatever, but that's been their message, is that they are not moving Zion.
I don't know the last time I watched a Warrior game and Jonathan Kuminga was in the mix. I just feel like he never plays, and they signed him to a 2-year deal. And look, I think there's a lot to like about him, but for whatever reason, this just feels like another situation that might be best for both sides to part. You think we see a trade involving Jonathan Kuminga?
That's definitely one of those. It needs to happen. And at this point, I don't know that the Warriors can continue holding out, trying to make a roster upgrade. I think they might just be time. I think they've got to take whatever their best offer is at the deadline, because it's not good for anybody to have him on the roster. Obviously, him and Kerr it's oil and water. Kerr does not want to play him. There's been way too much drama for a guy who hasn't done a whole lot in the league. I don't necessarily blame him for that. He hadn't had a lot of opportunity, and he's craving that opportunity. So I get his frustration, but Kerr doesn't trust him. And, Kerr's a pretty good coach. There's pretty mixed reviews about his potential around the league. What you say there's a lot to like about him. He's 6'7" with an NBA body and incredible athleticism. There's not a lot of skill. There's not a lot of feel for the game. Can that develop with playing time and opportunity? Perhaps. Somebody will take a flyer on him, but it's not going to work out for him in Golden State. That's crystal clear.
Last thing, the Giannis stuff just is out there, and I don't really have any idea how this is going to go down. It's another situation where you feel like a team and a player have been together for a long time, and it's worked out in a very successful way with an NBA championship, but they're not going anywhere. And, I wonder if they have decided that maybe it's time to move on from him as well.
The Milwaukee Bucks will not decide that it's time to move on from Giannis. Giannis is going to have to force his way out of Milwaukee. Milwaukee's trying to upgrade the roster around him. And listen, do I think is that the approach I would take in that seat? No, it's not. I think it's clear that the end is coming with Giannis, but Giannis keeps doing this passive-aggressive thing where he's kind of hinting at wanting out, but no, I would never do that. And unless he says, get me out of Milwaukee, they're not going to trade him.
Yeah.
And it's not. I don't believe that's happening before this deadline.
All right, Tim, where you at? What's keeping you busy tonight? You going to a game?
I am actually on my way. The Mavs are also on a back-to-back. I'm going to see the Mavs against the jokerless Nuggets. I tell you what, though, man, got to give the Nuggets credit. They have more than kept their heads above water during this time without Joker. And, giggle if you like, but I'm kind of excited to go watch Peyton Watson play basketball tonight.
Love it. Better equipped to play OKC in a 7-game series, San Antonio or Denver?
I'm going to say Denver just because I watched them push OKC to 7 games last year. And they've got Joker. If Joker's healthy, they've proven they can win a championship. But I'd love to see both those series. And, who knows? We'll see how the standings play out. We just might.
Yes, indeed. All right, Tim, enjoy the game. Thanks for the time, buddy. We'll chat soon, okay?
I appreciate you, brother.
Tim McMahon covers the NBA for ESPN. You can see him on the NBA Today show. He's on the Hoop Collective podcast with Brian Windhorst. Van McMahon is where you find him on social media. He wrote the book on Luka Doncic, the Luka Doncic era in Dallas. And Luka is now in L.A. because it really, at the time, and now it's manifested to be potentially the worst trade in the history of all pro sports. And that's why their general manager is now looking for work. All right, I want to let you know that Advanced Window Products is Utah's #1 window replacement company. You can get $2,500 off when you buy 10 windows or more. Just call Advanced Window Products at 801-850-9100 or visit advancedwindows.com. Don't miss out on $2,500 off when you buy 10 windows or more. Give the mayor of Sac Lake City, that's our guy Nate Orchard, a call today at 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100. You will not regret it. Advanced Window Products, building, installing, and guaranteeing the best windows in Utah. All right, 3 hours down, 1 hour to go. 5 o'clock hour of the program. We'll get back to the latest in the world of college football. We'll bring in Automatic Andy. Don't forget, Utah men's basketball taking on Texas Tech tonight. Our pregame coverage will be at 6:30. And then tip-off from Lubbock will be at 7 o'clock. Busy show the rest of the way. It's good to have you with us right here on ESPN 700. All right, what's going on? Drive at 5 time, Wednesday afternoon style. Congratulations. Halfway through your work week, you are one day closer to the weekend, one day closer to the weekend full of NFL playoff football, divisional round style. On Saturday, you get a couple of games. It's Bills, Broncos, and then 49ers, Seahawks. Sunday, a doubleheader with Texans and Patriots. Yeah, then the Rams and the Bears. So NFL playoffs continue to be top of mind. The coaching carousel in the world of pro football spins round and round and round. 9 openings as of right now. 9 openings. And reports are today that John Harbaugh took a private jet to New York, probably Newark, to be honest with you, to interview with the New York Giants. All indications are that Mike Tomlin, who walked away from the Pittsburgh Steelers after 19 years, is not going to coach next year. There's the Kevin Stefanski rumors out there, but there are 9 different openings. Robert Saleh is getting an interview with Baltimore, which as a Jets fan, I can tell you probably not a great idea. Speaking of the Jets, Dante Moore is going back to school because he saw that the Jets had the number 2 pick in the draft and was like, yeah, I'm good. I'm going to go back to Oregon. So what does that mean for Dylan Raiola, who transferred to Oregon? The transfer portal in the world of college football continues to spin round and round. Now, the good news today is that if you're a Utah fan, it's been rather quiet, okay? So over the past week and a half or so, it's been really chaotic. The transfer portal in college football will come to a close on Friday. So just a couple more days before we basically have the general idea of what Utah football will look like this year, what BYU football will look like this year. Your up-to-date transfer portal numbers are rather stunning. 10,576 players entered the transfer portal as soon as they were allowed to. That number is now at 6,846. Here's the problem. That's about 1,500 to 1,800 more players than there are scholarships or roster spots. And that's P4, right? So there's going to be nearly 2,000 kids that entered the transfer portal without a P4 home. Not going to get paid. They're not even going to be able to play football on the highest levels. The numbers continue to be a little bit staggering. Yesterday, Smith Snowden announced his intent to go play for Coach Witt at Michigan in Ann Arbor, and that brings the total to 5. And we had talked about the potential of how many players would end up playing for Kyle, and that felt like about right. Maybe a little bit more, because the reality is, just like we had the conversation about the coaching staff, really whoever Kyle wanted, he was most likely going to be able to get. And if you look at the list of the players still in the transfer portal, I don't mean this disrespectfully. I just don't think there's any of them left that are good enough to play for Michigan in the Big Ten. So I think this is the final tally. Jonah Leah, J.J. Buchanan, Smith Snowden, in addition to John Henry Daly. My guess is that's going to be it. Of course, Celeste Moa, who was the number 1 recruit in the state of Utah, and the son of Ute legend Ben Moa. And yes, he is still a legend, decommitted from Utah, and he will play for Michigan as well. So those are the names that I think will represent the final tally. I think we're going to land at 5. Now, for the Utah side of things in the transfer portal, as we wait to see if there are any other additions over the next 24 hours, we have a list of players that, for the most part, are going to be playing up a level, right? And so, that's the success that Utah had a year ago by grabbing a quarterback in Devin Dampier, who will be back coming up next year. From New Mexico, a running back in Wayshawn Parker, a wide receiver, an offensive coordinator. So Utah has used this model as recently as a year ago in order to, analyze talent, identify talent at a smaller school or at a lower level, and then hope they can acclimate themselves to P4 football in the Big 12. So at this point, as we've talked about some of the composite rankings, when it comes to the transfer portal, and then in addition to just the transfer portal, there are also rankings out there that are a combination of both transfer portal additions and then recruits, high school recruits. And if we look at, and this is 247 Sports, there are a lot of different outlets out there that do these rankings. But as of now, and these are the combined, this is transfer portal and high school commits. BYU at number 25. Now, BYU in the transfer portal is down at 47, but BYU has, by most metrics, either the second or the third best recruiting class in the Big 12. Okay, so when it comes to the overall rankings, Texas Tech is at 13 and BYU is at 25. So if you look at this, Texas Tech would have the best class, and then BYU would actually be at number 2. So Arizona State, and this is the combined rankings, would be at number 3, and they're at number 26 overall. West Virginia at number 4. They brought in a glut of new players out of necessity for sure. And then there's Utah at number 5. So Utah at 37 overall and number 5 in the Big 12, okay? And these are composite rankings, and as we've seen here throughout the course of, quite frankly, decades and decades and decades, oftentimes the best players, including now college football Hall of Famer Eric Weddle, was not a highly sought-after recruit. Neither was Alex Smith. Eric Weddle and Alex Smith are your 2 college football Hall of Famers from Utah, and neither of them had a ton of scholarship offers. So only time will tell, as we've discussed, and all we have right now is basically discussing possibilities based off of names from schools that are not necessarily on par with Big 12 schools or P4 schools. But we do have proof of concept, at least under the old staff's guidance, that identifying talent was a big skill that Utah football had, identifying, developing. And now the unfortunate reality in today's day and age of college football is, in a lot of ways, it is like the NBA, where you have to identify talent, you have to develop that talent, and then you have to retain that talent. And it's a new situation that wasn't necessarily part of the deal up until this entire transfer portal, NIL reality became what we're all dealing with now. So it's not just identifying talent. It's not just developing talent. It's also retaining the talent, as 5 to 7 really good players are going to find other places to play for Utah football this year. Now, the good news is that's not near as many players as a lot of schools have had to deal with. Like, honestly speaking, if you're a Ute fan, I know a lot of people are frustrated that Witt is grabbing all these players to go play for him in Michigan. I understand that. It could have been a lot worse. And I think there are a lot of things to hope for. Namely, you get your quarterback back in Devin Dampier and his backup in Bert Ficklin and Wayshawn Parker, and the additions that the team has made in the transfer portal. Jackson Benny comes back. Rabbit Evans comes back. A lot of really good players. Cash Dillon, who's a really talented young man, he's going to come back. Jonathan Hall at linebacker. Like, there are pieces in place that should give you a lot of hope. Kelvin Obad, the highest rated recruit in the history of Utah football. Okay, I know we're all bummed out that Celeste Moa is going to not, be wearing a Ute uniform, Ute jersey, but there's a lot of things, I think, as we're falling into place that should give you hope that Morgan and his staff know what they're doing, as the transfer portal will close coming up on Friday. All right, we'll catch a quick break. Don't forget, Utah men's hoops tonight on the radio station. Our pregame coverage of Utah Texas Tech will come your way at 6:30 tonight. Then tip-off in Lubbock. Texas Tech is really good. They're the number 15 ranked team in the country. Will come your way at 7 o'clock. So big one for Alex Jensen and his players tonight. And you'll hear it right here on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700. Running Utes with a tough task tonight. They're in Lubbock, taking on the number 15 ranked team in the country in Texas Tech. The Big 12 is a beast. If you heard Bill Self talking about this over the course of the past 48 hours, he did not use such kind of language because, this is a family-friendly show. Texas Tech, they lost to Houston a couple of games ago. That was a really good game. They lost by 4. Purdue, the number 1 team in the country at the time, got them. They lost to Illinois. They've lost their losses are all to ranked teams. They beat Duke. They're coming off a win against Colorado. So Texas Tech, they're 2-1 in conference. They're 12-4 overall, and they're a very talented, well-funded basketball team, just like they are a very talented, well-funded football team. JT Toppin is an NBA guy. He's averaging a double-double. 21 points, 11 boards on the season. He's a beast. The JP Toppin, James Okonkwo battle, probably one to watch. I thought James was really good against BYU, certainly on the glass, and he gives them that physical presence down low. This is a tough one for Utah. They're a heavy underdog, and at this point, Utah has lost 4 straight games. They've lost 5 of 6, and they find themselves winless in conference, 0-3, 8-8 overall. They're low in the Ken Palm right now. This is the early stages of what is probably going to be a very long process, and hopefully as soon as maybe next season, just show a little more competitive fire. Utah State welcomes in Nevada tonight. USU is 14-1, first place in the Mountain West. This is weird. We got a 7 o'clock Utah game. We have an 8 o'clock Utah State game, and we have a 9 o'clock BYU game in Provo as TCU rolls into town. BYU a healthy favorite to win that game. The Utah women look to continue their hot start as they welcome in Baylor up at the Huntsman Center. That game tips in just a little bit over an hour from right now. I encourage you to head on up and support the Utah women's hoops team. Gavin Peterson was our guest yesterday. I always enjoy his time. The Utah Jazz are in action tonight as well. Busy night of basketball as the Jazz will take on the Bulls in a situation where it's the second game of a 5-game road trip. So there you go. All right, Porter. Busy night of basketball. This is the weird time of year where we're used to being inundated with football games, and we won't have one on Thursday night. We won't have any until Saturday. We get 2 Saturday, 2 Sunday, and then the national championship game on Monday. But, now it's time to start putting your attention over to the hardwood.
Yeah, of course, we've got basketball on the station tonight, women's hoops up at the Huntsman Center. It's kind of officially time to turn the page, at least here in Salt Lake. I know we had the game back on December 31st, but the Scally stuff kind of kept our local football coverage going for a couple of weeks. We'll, of course, continue to talk about all that and Scally in 2026. But, yeah, I think we can kind of officially turn at least one of the pages over to hoops action.
Yeah, once we have the transfer portal behind us on Friday, we'll have a pretty good idea of what this roster is going to look like. Now, ultimately, it's impossible to predict how the season will go. I would say even up until fall camp, we'll get a look at these kids during spring football. But so many of them are unknowns, whether it's transfer portal additions or high school players signing, coming out of high school to play for Utah. The Kalshi Sports prediction markets have predicted that C.J. Carr is your favorite to win the Heisman Trophy next year, followed by Marcel Reed, Julian Sayin, and Arch Manning. You dabble in these prediction markets. Do you have a feel for just because it feels like they more often than not are predicting things in it like they had the wit to Michigan stuff really before any reporter did. I don't know how they do it.
Yeah, I think it seems like it's just people kind of in the know that are putting stock into it, and then the market doesn't go off of rumors or anything. It just goes off of what people are putting in there. So I don't know, man. I think we kind of jumped the shark on all of that stuff, but people are making money off of it, I suppose.
I guess. Just be careful out there. As I say, you work too hard for your money. Keep it in your bank account. Keep it in your pocket. All right, enjoy some Utah men's basketball tonight or some NBA hoops or college basketball on this Wednesday evening. Porter, before we get out of here, what comes our way on a Thursday edition of the program?
All over the map with our guy Andy Larson. We'll stop on our NBA Daily Assist with one Dave McMiniman, Sean Syed for some NFL ahead of the postseason action. And then Pablo Mastroeni, it's preseason on the soccer side.
All right. Yeah. RSL has reported for preseason. The first match, that's what they call it, kids, soccer term, no big deal. February the 21st, first home match, again, soccer term, Seattle the following week. We will say goodnight. Special thank you today to Automatic Andy Phillips, Chris Camerani, Zach Harper, and Tim McMahon for the sound you missed from the show. Go to the website, which is ESPN700sports.com. Make sure to download our mobile app and take us on the go. That ESPN 700 app is available in the App Store and the Google Play Store. And then finally, for what we do in our space every afternoon for 4 full hours, check out our podcast page. It is called The Drive with Spence Checketts. It's available wherever you get your shows. Subscribe, rate, review, say nice things in the comments. Give us all the stars. It helps out the program if you'll take some time to do that. For Porter, I'm Spence saying goodnight. Have a great Wednesday evening. We'll talk to you on a Thursday drive. And as always, you can catch up right here on your home of the Utes,